think one of the biggest things I've weirdly learned about myself, and yes, I know that's a strange way to put it, it's that I'm really fascinated by bizarre, old, and obscure Japanese video games. So to give you an idea of this, I have a Backlogged. It's this really cool website where you can log what games you've played, pretty much for like a letterbox, but for games. And on my profile, I have a huge backlog totaling to over 1,100 games. I've told myself that I do want to play every single one eventually, but yeah, I honestly don't think that's feasible at all. Mostly because it's just a fuck ton of games, and also, there's a bunch of joke games on there. But I'd say for the majority of this huge list is stuff that's actually interested me at some point or another. Mostly those really obscure Japanese games that I just get so enamored in. Over the past few months, it's just been rapid fire. I see a weird game with an interesting cover art, name, or whatever, and I just add it here. Or maybe I add something just because of the nature surrounding it. And that's pretty much how I got to this point, like Jesus Christ. Now, some of my favorite examples include stuff like, I don't know, Planet Daub, Sagari Ijiri, which, fun fact, actually has a sequel on PS2 of all things. I mean, I know you don't care, but yeah, there you go. Or this really cool looking penguin platforming game for Sega Saturn of all things, called M4m4. I mean, just looking at the covers gives it away, and just finding out about these along with many others have only fueled my interest in just this niche category of games. It's pretty cool to me. Even though I try my best to branch out of my comfort zones in this medium, I, for some reason, always get weirdly sucked into obscure games that have had some involvement with Nintendo, whether they developed or published it. I have a long history with Nintendo. I mean, I basically grew up with their games, which should come as no surprise, so I guess that's why some of their lesser-known stuff always grabbed my attention. But I guess it's also just about thinking that the big Nintendo corporation was in fact involved with some of these games at all. Often you'd see these franchises represented in very small parts in Smash Bros, usually through the Gallery or Spirits and Ultimate. There was also something called the Chronicle in Brawl, which listed every single game Nintendo published up to that point. I think this is the only Smash Bros game that ever did this, which was kind of neat. I guess. I don't know, it'd be kinda useless now. But yeah, you could find some interesting series representation nonetheless. Something like the Oendon games with Elite Beat Agents, Hotel Dusk, and of course Chibi Robo, all sharing the same published by Nintendo moniker. I guess the stuff they were willing to endorse in a way, which just makes it way more interesting in my opinion, cause I guess by that point they are just Nintendo games, right? You can even find stuff they apparently developed too. Like, let's dig really deep here. Everyone already knows about Miyamoto's Mole Mania, but there's this one really niche RPG for the Game Boy called Kareru no Tame ni Kane wa Naru, translating to The Frog for Whom the Bell Tolls. And it was made by Nintendo R&D 1 and Intelligent Systems. That's wild. And as you'd expect, it's gotten some acknowledgement in Smash Bros, of course. Or how about this one? Marvelous, Mo Hitatsu no Takarijima. Yeah, I don't fucking know. It's another game developed by Nintendo themselves and was even directed by fucking Eiji Aonuma of all people. I rediscovered this game just a few days ago and that shit really blew my mind. And wouldn't you have guessed it, the main characters in that game are also in Smash Ultimate as a spirit. One last one, another developed by Nintendo NSD, is Sakura Momoko no Iuki. Why did I fucking write these names in the script? Okay, it's for the GBA. I don't know, like, anything about this game other than it just looks really interesting. It was produced by Shigeru Miyamoto, and oh yeah, it never came outside of Japan. In fact, none of the games I mentioned were released anywhere outside of Japan. If you wanted to play them, you'd have to import them. The Carnival game, though, in particular, is really obscure. So obscure that I don't think it's had any representation in Smash Bros. Except for being in the Chronicle, I guess, but that, like, barely counts. Regardless, I feel like it's almost always like this for even the most obscure, most niche games that Nintendo had some part in. Whether publishing or developing, there's a good chance they've had some tiny representation in Smash Bros. On one hand, I find it really cool that they're able to sort of inadvertently let these series shine in just at least a little bit of a light, you know? But I also kind of find it really sad that this is pretty much what all these different franchises' legacies amount to, at least officially anyway. It's either that or ending up on Nintendo's emulation services that ends up being the fates of many. There's a ton more of these extremely niche but original Japanese Nintendo games I could mention here, and all are super intriguing, but I think I've talked enough about this. Sorry, Sute Hakun. Now, why have I gone on for seemingly forever about this? Well, going all the way back to Melee, when the gallery was first introduced, you can find the obscure IPs that were arguably what was deemed by Nintendo, or whoever was working on this, to be some of the most important to be included as trophies, because this is the first time they were able to be included. They were like top priority here, pretty much. And, well, Custom Robo was here, of course, that's sick. But also in this game, you had freaking Doshin the Giant included, which I guess makes sense at the time because this game was pretty new for GameCube at least, though he weirdly and sadly hasn't made appearances in future Smash installments to my knowledge. Cubivore of all things had representation, as insane as that sounds. Included is a character very ominously and mysteriously referred to as Alpha. Strange. But then alongside those, you were able to find representation for Kuru Kuru Kururin. And yep, this right here, this is what makes it so interesting to me. I mean, think about it. Like I said, this is the first Smash game where they had trophies. They had the opportunity to include any character from any niche IP so long as Nintendo published it. And they chose Kururin for the first one. And you know what Kururin has in common with Cubivore as well as Doshin? All three of their games released in the early 2000s were available for English-speaking audiences at least, and were all published by Nintendo. To me, I see these three as like the grand titans of obscure Nintendo franchises, the great trilogy if you will. Kururin in particular was apparently so important to Nintendo that it was included as an insist trophy in Brawl even. And to make matters more interesting, I've already covered Cubivore and Doshin on my channel before, and I fucking love both of those games. But obviously with Kururin, I've strangely neglected to talk about this game for a long time. I mean, this is kind of like a duh thing, right? Like, duh, I should have played this way sooner because, you know, I love Cubivore and Doshin so fucking much, and also I even had friends recommending this series to me. So like, Kururin, just the general nature around it, of it looking like a cute yet obscure Japanese Nintendo game, this seemed to be made just for me. I know it sounds stupid and possibly pretentious, but it's at least what I believe, alright? Again, it's just in that stupid genre of funny-looking niche Japanese Nintendo game that I always get sucked into, or something that someone like, I don't know, John Cartwright would be swooning over, yeah. So I've obviously known about Kuru Kuru Kururin for a really long time, and at the time of me writing this video, I've actually already played it. It was earlier this year when I decided I would just finally play all 3 games in the series. Yeah, that's right, Kururin spawned 3 games, the first and 2 other sequels, Kururin Paradise and Kururin Squash, for GBA and GameCube respectively. You've likely heard much less talk about these games from people because those 2 games never made it outside of Japan. Oh, isn't that just expected at this point? But as for the first, it's gotten way more recognition, at least as far as games like these go. But you know, that kind of makes sense, because Kuru Kuru Kururin also got released for PAL territories, but not North America for some reason, which is really fascinating, and that's another interesting subcategory of niche games, ones that only get localized for European audiences. I'm looking at you, Sing! It's also been released for the Nintendo Switch Online GBA service, which I think is actually really cool. Fun fact, this is the first time this game had officially been released for North American audiences. But man, I heard a lot of people got introduced to this game, and to that extent the whole series for the first time, just because it got added here. See, I honestly think that's part of the beauty in NSO. Like, say what you will about the stupid subscription service model or the bad drip feed of games, but honestly, Nintendo adding weirdly niche titles like this can actually do wonders for introducing them to a new audience. Like, take that Fire and Ice game that they added years ago for the NES. I didn't know about it, and, you know, it looks pretty cool. I don't know, that's probably a bad example. I think here it's a different story altogether, just because Kururin really sticks out on their GBA app. There's not a lot of GBA games for one, and pretty much every other one are the big first-party titles that you'd expect them to add anyway. So to me, it feels like Nintendo was really willing to give some appreciation and acknowledgement for this series in at least some way nowadays, especially because they brought it to North America. That's pretty cool. Now, to answer the usual question of who developed the game, well, Kuru Kuru Kururin, as well as the 2 sequels, was developed by a company named Eighting. I'm not sure if I can say they made any super noteworthy games before this one, but it is interesting to see their legacy before Kururin, I guess. Before 2000, when they had changed their name to Eighting, they were known as Rising, and were mostly known for making shoot-'em-up arcade-style games, a lot of which have some pretty cool fucking cover art, I can't lie. And with how many they made back then, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were regarded as kind of a household name for that kind of stuff. And generally, I find it really cool just how different and pretty badass their games seemed to be when they were known as Rising, almost like they were a completely separate company. That being said, after changing to Eighting, they started to seemingly shift their focus away from shoot-'em-ups to, according to Wikipedia at least, mobile/social gaming, as well as Kururin, of course, and licensed fighting games, I guess. Just a bunch of random stuff I can't really connect very well. But I do find it interesting that they apparently co-developed Pikmin 4, which is like really surprising to me. Like, come to think of it, I think that's why there's a treasure in that game that looks like the Kururin cartridge. That is honestly wild to me. I don't really have a good segue, but I'm just gonna be talking about the first game in this video, Kuru Kuru Kururin. Kururin for short, because god, it would be redundant to call it by its full name all the time. I was originally going to pack all 3 games into one giant video, but then I decided that it'd probably be a lot more digestible if I split them up into 3. Not only for you, the viewer, but also for me as I'm working on these. And also, I think it's kind of nice just for the consistency in how I make videos on single games almost all of the time. So yeah. Still, I will most likely make all 3 of these videos in a row, so sorry if you didn't come for Kururin after I just came back from like an 8-month hiatus. I'm sorry. I also want to mention I'll be playing this game on my 3DS. This is through a GBA Virtual Console inject with modding. This is because I found out a few months ago that apparently when Nintendo released the original and official GBA Virtual Console games for the whole Ambassador thing a long time ago, the games weren't emulated, despite being released under the Virtual Console branding. They were technically running on official hardware instead, which makes sense come to think of it, because like the 3DS has native DS hardware for backwards compatibility, in which the original model DS had native GBA hardware also because of backwards compatibility. And you know, I usually love to play games and record footage off of original hardware if I can, which, speaking of, I also got my 3DS modded to have a capture card installed, so I can record directly off of here too. Pretty cool if you ask me. Just ignore how fucking destroyed my console looks, like god, the paint is really chipping off now. Why did they use this material for the system? Despite how it looks, it still works pretty well in my opinion. I guess it kinda has to, I mean there's a freaking $200 capture card inside of it. Haha. Also, even though I couldn't feasibly record footage off the original cartridges, I still kinda wish I could get my hands on at least a European copy of Kururin. The thing is, I just could not find many of these on eBay at least. My best guess is that they're kind of rare, possibly because that version didn't sell very well. I honestly want to theorize that maybe the box art had something to do with it. I mean, it differs completely from the Japanese box art, which, I mean, that one looks so fun and inviting, and shows off the actual characters in the game. Well, this is just kind of a spinning line. I don't know, it doesn't do a great job representing that this is actually supposed to be a helicopter with a creature piloting inside, you know? Not all PAL releases had this box art though. Interestingly enough, I think some language variants of the PAL release had the Japanese art on it. I mean, I only know this just from looking up box art for the game, and here it's kind of awkward with the composition just because of the differences in layout and box size itself. Also, something very minor to note, I like how the PAL release spells the title specifically like this, judging by the logo, which, by the way, is actually supposed to be the official, stylized way of writing it. Yeah, just look at the manual for evidence. You know, the manual that Nintendo still has up on their official website as an archive for when they did the Wii U Virtual Console. Fascinating, honestly. Anyways, I guess I was very able to get a Japanese copy complete in box for relatively cheap, and I totally would have gotten it mostly for this video, but I honestly don't think I can really spend money on this kind of thing at the moment, but maybe when I get to Paradise I'll make up for that. Anyways, apologies for just how fucking long this intro is, but honestly, I've been planning this video for months with the sole purpose of being as in-depth as I reasonably can. And man, Kuru Kuru Kururin is a game that I have quite a lot to say about, so I'm not gonna try and be self-aware about the length or anything because I honestly don't fucking care about that anymore. Like, it's just such a YouTuber cliche to be self-aware about that kind of thing, at least in my eyes, but yeah, let's just get started already. Playing on this sure is authentic as hell, huh? Yeah, it takes a fairly long time to actually boot when playing this on the 3DS with the inject. If I had to make an educated guess, I'd want to say the system is actually restarting during this time, much like how the Wii U does the same thing when you boot into Wii mode. Makes sense. Alright, so we start right off with a very cute looking intro cutscene of what looks like a family of birds walking around. The Kururin family, as I like to call it. Not sure if that's the official name at all. But unfortunately, all of them go missing, except for Mother Kururin, again, unofficial name, though the real name is Kakarin, apparently. But anyway, she goes to alert Kururin on this troubling matter. He's the main bluebird, and that's a really good freeze frame. Now it's time for him to go on a big old adventure to rescue them back in his spinning stick of a helicopter. That's the premise. That's literally it. At least that's all the game itself gives you. It's the bare fucking minimum as far as a story that's supposed to incentivize you to go on an adventure in a video game can be, basically. In fact, I'm honestly fucking impressed at that point. I'm stunned. I guess the whole idea of an extremely simple plot, or lack thereof, really fits in with the simple presentation and gameplay of Kururin. But like, honestly, it still blows my mind. You know, I've played a lot of games that have this thing as well, just a cartoonishly simple plot, usually perfect for settling in the don't take this seriously, it's just a silly little game atmosphere. But this right here, Kuru Kuru Kururin's premise, I think it actually takes the cake for just being the easiest, most downright, most simple to wrap your head around setups I've seen in any video game, period. And told through no words too. The only thing I'm like pretty damn confused on is just how did all of Kururin's siblings go missing? Like, pretty much all you have to go off of is just in the intro, where they kind of just walk off screen to the right. And oh, I guess they went missing? Sure. I mean, Mother Kururin looks confused. Okay, panic time, sure. The only other real source I could find was just the PAL version's manual, and nope, it doesn't clarify how they went missing either. I don't know, this plot point is just so incredibly vague, it's almost funny. But you know, it's also just like, why am I even bringing this up? Like, who fucking cares, right? Moving on to what matters, the rest of the intro has a neat little montage of the spinning line going around as it eventually transitions into the game's logo just like that. Okay, that's kinda nice. This is the title screen, by the way, and, well, I think I should tell you something cool about this screen. Apparently, as a really obscure Easter egg, I mean, this was actually mind-blowing to me, but if you hold L, select, and B all at the same time, you can actually move the stick helicopter around with the control pad. Alright, I'm gaslighting. You can't actually do any of that. I just love spreading misinformation. Sorry. Anyways, that's also a really nice shade of purple for the background, and it even extends to the file select menu too. Nice. Making a new file, you can see that you're able to register a name. Now, this is just a personal file name. It doesn't actually name the character you play as. Your personal record times will be recorded as whatever you put here, but all the characters in the game will still call, well, I guess you, Kururin. I don't know, you get it though, right? So after that is the main menu. A plethora of modes are here, and we'll definitely check them out eventually, but we're just gonna go into adventure mode, since that's the main one. Selecting normal too, cause it's the normal way to go. Kururin, my kids got lost in another land. Can you go and rescue them? Uh-oh, looks like Kururin hasn't been outside of this world. That spread is just so funny to me, like that expression and how it's just drawn. He looks so sad. Anyways, it looks like he'll need training from Teacher Hare, the rabbit pilot. So there's a couple training levels you can optionally do before the main game. But, you know, instead of letting Hair over here explain everything, I'll do the talking. Yeah, I should fuck off. So, Kururin is actually a really simple game to understand. Maybe too simple. Maybe almost deceptively simple. Like, you can understand it by just looking at it for a couple seconds, basically. But for now, just explaining it as logically as I can, you control a continuously rotating fucking stick of a helicopter, officially called the Helirin, which funnily enough was misspelled in Melee, that Kururin will always jump into at the start of every stage to pilot on the inside. That's always a cute little cutscene. I really like that. Okay, before I actually talk about gameplay, I do want to talk about Kururin himself. He's a really interesting character to me, let's just say that. I mean, I think he has one of the funniest fucking designs for any creature on the planet, and that swirl of hair, I think, I do dig that as well. But also, from what I've gathered, there seems to be some debate regarding what exactly he is. I've seen some fan wiki pages just say he's a duck, and some other sources say he's a bird. And as for official sources, well, I haven't really seen any confirmation on that kind of thing. Weird. But I'm here to just say he's probably a bird. Like, I don't think ducks have feet like those. Like, those are most likely bird feet to me. I guess it can be easy to mistake Kururin for being a duck. But, well, I guess let me know what you personally think in the comments. Also, Kuru Kuru Kururin, from what I take of it, that name is actually based off of some kind of Japanese onomatopoeia for a sound that's kind of like a whir, or a sound of something going around and around like in circles. Kuru Kuru. And by the way, looking up this name on like YouTube or something is rather annoying because it seems like half the results are just like this meme or something. Like, I don't know, it's like a fucking spinning anime girl or some shit. Like I don't fucking know. You think I know? I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, as you can see from the footage of the game, constantly spinning is just a thing you do, so the name really fits. And judging further by the footage, you'll see that this is kind of an unconventional think on your feet sort of puzzle game, an action puzzle game if you will. You're going to be faced with many different courses where you have to really weave your Helirin in between the walls at just the right time, evaluating the situation and deliberately waiting for your stick to rotate a certain amount just so you can squeeze right on by. Because hitting these walls means bad, obviously. You'll take a heart of damage, but also have 3 seconds added to your time, which is undesirable in another way, but we'll get to that aspect much later. I guess if I had to bring up any examples for comparison, I'd say, well, imagine if that irritating stick game for PS1 and the battery RAM minigame from Mario Party 7 were essentially combined. Like, you got the whole don't touch the walls or you'll be shocked thing, and carefully weaving your way through tight corridors as you're turning and turning your stick-shaped object. You know what I mean? I think the comparison to irritating stick in particular is pretty obvious though. I say this because something interesting I learned is that in Japan, the game was called this. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but the thing is, this game was actually based off a segment on a Japanese game show by that same name. Okay, well, I guess that show didn't invent this whole game of guiding a metal rod through a maze without touching the sides. It was first technically a generic carnival game. But anyways, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Kururin was inspired by this idea as well. I mean, it's very possible. Although I don't think there's any official interviews or confirmation this was actually the case, so who really knows. Except, I had apparently just learned right in the middle of writing the script, almost out of nowhere, that there is actually a fidget toy mostly popular in Japan called Kururin, and it's like a stick that's able to spin and roll and stuff. I don't know, it kinda looks neat, and looking at how this all works, I'd probably be way more inclined to believe this is what actually inspired Kururin, the game. I mean, it's in the name too. Interesting stuff, honestly. But anyways, spinning line crazes aside, Kururin is a game where you constantly have to be thinking about where you're at and where you're gonna go, and how you're gonna go being the main thing. You know, you always rotate, and there's no such thing as brute forcing without consequences here. While there are plenty of safe spots where you can rest easy and contemplate on what to do from there, as the game goes on and you face more and more levels, the difficulty really ramps up, and I mean like really does. This game is actually fucking infamous for how hard it can get. Kinda surprising, honestly. Some of these levels are gonna take tons of attempts, despite how short they really are, And you know, it's always good when a game like this, something made for quick bursts of gameplay on the go, it has virtually no waiting in between retries and just hopping into a new stage. And in these stages, you're eventually just gonna have to be going for it, you know what I mean? You're just gonna have lots of moments of just fucking booking it without hesitation. And yeah, you may take hits along the way, in fact you definitely will, and maybe you'll even have to restart, but you learn along the way, that's the key point. Speaking of, generally just speeding up is also a huge fucking part of this game. You have two levels of speed up here actually. The first is if you just hold A or B, and then the second is if you hold A plus B. And that's really where you just zoom. These variants and speedups are perfect for just those make it or break it moments, those sections where you literally have to think on your feet and practically improvise your movements. It's so good, dude. Although for me personally, I did tend to do the whole all or nothing strat of just holding A plus B when I wanted to speed up at all, rather than varying in between the two different speeds. Honestly, that strategy worked fine for me regardless, so don't feel like you're missing out on a degree of freedom if you do the same thing as I did. Now, speaking on the controls, this is something I feel like people may get divided on, and that's the D-pad. Obviously, when this game came out for GBA, the D-pad was the only thing you could control the Helirin with, and you might imagine how this could cause issues for people who are so used to playing games with a control stick, especially for a game like this, where precision is absolutely key. You fucking need it! I mean, this isn't a 2D side-scroller. These days, you can have it really easy even through official means. Playing on the Switch Online app, you can totally use a control stick, and to be honest, it feels pretty smooth, but let me just say, I really do defend the D-pad for a game like this, and it's all down to a matter of just getting used to it, getting used to the feel, because like, when I first played this game, I just ended up retreating back to using the circle pad on my 3DS for pretty much all of the game. The thing is that I didn't really try the D-pad for long enough to justify giving it up altogether, so for this video, I decided to play exclusively with the thing, and man, did it take some getting used to at first. Like, there were so many moments where I just felt like I collided with a wall because I just wasn't feeling precise enough with this 8-directional movement. But trust me, I think if you spend enough time with it, you really do get used to it, and that was definitely the case for me. I was suddenly beating these levels with little to no trouble at all and just rocking my thumb on that D-pad. And honestly, it's a game feel I'd say I prefer over using an analog stick. It was surprising for me, but to tell you the truth, playing with the D-pad is just what was intended. I actually really like how it all feels after playing through Kururin like this. Just that one-to-one feeling you have with your Helirin as you make these ever so slight adjustments to your position over and over. Again, rocking your thumb on that D-pad like crazy. It's really a cool game feel to me. I guess it can feel kind of clunky at first, but man, it is an acquired taste that I ended up really enjoying. And plus, it's not like the levels were designed to be traversed with any more than 8 directions at your disposal, and that's especially important. Like, when it comes to what may seem like inherent limitations on controls, it's really imperative to take into account how the game was specifically designed around those controls, to the point where you don't even have to see them as limited just because the game usually doesn't try to fly too close to the sun in that regard. And with Kururin, the level design does not get that ambitious. It's all perfectly doable with only 8 directions at your disposal. But even then, of course, you still need an actually well-made D-pad to get the best experience. And with the 3DS one, it's pretty nice and clicky, feels really tactile, but it's also equally nice to have options. And honestly, if you feel way more comfortable playing this game with a control stick, by all means, go for it. I'm not even going to try and encourage you to go with the D-pad anyway. Like, accessibility is a really important thing for games especially. Like, of the utmost importance out of any medium out there. I mean, games are entirely interactive, and a lot of them are very dependent on how good you are with that kind of interaction. And you know, some people just have different kinds of skill sets in that regard. So it's always insanely important to just have options in games, whether with control options or with stuff like difficulty settings, for example. But funnily enough, for me personally, if I'm playing on 3DS, I actually can't go back to using the circle pad anymore for Kururin, because I don't know, there's a really bad sense of just dead zone. What I mean is just like the 8-directional movement doesn't really flow well into this thing. Like, it just feels like there's too much awkward empty space between the inputs for all the cardinal directions. But playing this game with a Pro Controller with an analog stick on Switch, now that's still really nice. Overall, the gameplay for Kururin is fucking rock solid to me. It is one of the biggest reasons why I love this game so damn much, along with many others. Yeah, I know, it's just a spinning line adventure, like how could it be so great? But, I mean, this is one of those things where I can say the beauty is in its simplicity. Now, okay, that seems like a pretentious way to say it, but being genuine here, the easy to understand nature of this game is something that has to be praised, and plus, I really think the game feel of Kururin is almost unmatched. There really isn't any other game that has produced this kind of satisfaction for me in the controls and movement. I think it's mostly just in the sense of pure accomplishment in finally conquering these levels near flawlessly. I mean, technically, you only have 3 hearts of HP. Beating them just feels really good, and also relieving to a humorous extent. What I like most about this game, however, is the sound design, or lack thereof, of journeying and eventually achieving your end goals. Unlike a lot of other games, with Kururin, there's neither really any auditory nor visual feedback for you doing something without hiccups. Like, there's no visual bang or flare or a satisfying hit of a sound effect to accompany you when you make a tight turn around a curve or weave your way through a set of obstacles. Because I mean, this is just a game that simply doesn't call for it. Of course, me praising Kururin for this is obviously not to discredit games that do prioritize punchy sound design for a satisfying game feel, not at all. But my point is that you essentially determine how skilled you get at this game based on how you feel, how fucking relieving it feels to finally make it through that tight corridor without taking any damage. It's all in the name of the D-pad and your own satisfaction in improving your movement. No sound cues or nothing, it's just purely the lack of penalty that greatly contributes to that. It's good fucking stuff, and it's just a great concept for a simple arcade-style game like this, you know? It's almost addicting in just that sense of wanting to beat every level, knowing that you were so damn close to getting to the goal, but you know, you just happened to fumble at the last second. And again, the matter of evaluation in this game is also superb. This is a puzzle game at its core, obviously, and in my opinion, it comes in layers. It inadvertently rewards you for figuring out and solving how exactly you can get through the passage along the way and how to line up with your Helirin's clockwise/counterclockwise motion, or how you'll dodge all the obstacles and just barely line it up, as if all the stars finally align and the cycle of your Helirin spin and the pistons moving make it so you can progress safe and sound. All rewarding, again, without making it obvious. I'd go as far as to say this is masterful game design in how it's presented and how deceptively simple it is, because once you get past the basics of the controls and gameplay, you really see just how deep and technical it can all really get. I want to bring up the official Japanese Nintendo website page for this game on Switch Online. If you were to translate it with Google Chrome's translate feature thing, you get to see the little tagline reads, "Simple and deep." And you know, that's a really good way to describe Kuru Kuru Kururin. That all being said, the whole concept of rewarding the player simply through feeling alone rather than celebratory sounds or graphics does get switched and reversed when you mess up. That is a really terrible sound to hear in my opinion, but obviously with it being so grating on the ears, I think it only adds to your motivation and just not wanting to touch those walls, not even once. I mean, yes, you do take damage for it, and that's arguably worse, but that sound that accompanies it, man, it sucks. And it's annoying too when you hit the walls multiple times in a damn second. Like, Jesus Christ. It's like, fucking abysmal. This is gonna happen so damn much, but I love it. I love the sound design here. Every time this happens, it stings like crazy, at least for me. Oh yeah, and expect this to happen at least like once or twice. Then glass break. That's what you get for trying to brute force your way through. Practically just a punishment that sounds soothing on the ears, huh? And also that sound for when you get hit on your last heart. Yeah, it's fucking glass breaking, and your Helirin just shatters, vaporizes, obliterated to dust, blasted into smithereens. This is also really good sound design. Like, oh my god, I cannot get over this. I haven't been able to get over this. Cause you know, this is obviously a pretty unrealistic sound for what's supposed to be a stable helicopter ship thing, right? But obviously it was a deliberate design choice made by the developers to make that sound of just taking your last hit all the more unsatisfying, while also insinuating the idea that your Helirin is extremely fragile and delicate. Like god, it's ridiculous and brutal but amazing and almost genius all at the same time. I love it. I know a lot of other games do this whole thing of deliberately unsatisfying sound design when you mess up, like Cuphead is a good example, because even taking one hit in that game can be really detrimental, and the sound that accompanies it along with the rumble in your controller really hammers in that sting feeling of screwing up. As for Kururin though, the rest of the sound design I think is also great. Like, it all really has this mechanical feel to it, you know? How speeding up your Helirin makes this really mechanical machine-like whirr as you go. It's almost like a claw machine in a way. It's so good, and it really does wonders into just adding to that arcade-like nature of Kururin's gameplay style. Now, of course, for all the levels themselves, they obviously can't just be a bunch of stagnant series of corridors you have to make your way through with zero moving obstacles. That would be bad, no variety in level design that way. But the game does have 10 different worlds to go through in the adventure mode, each with 3 levels, and they all differ greatly in at least visual design, but also level design as you'll soon see. So I thought this would be fun, but I was thinking I would go through every world in this game individually, one after another. Obviously not going to go through every level, because god, that would take way too long, but I'll still talk about a few notable ones for sure. Being real with you, this game is pretty damn short, actually like really short. On average you could beat this game at maybe like 3 hours or something if I had to estimate. So that's mainly why I'm doing this, that and also because of the very rigid linear structure of the game and just how simple the gameplay really is. So why not? It's not something I usually do for videos, but I hope you appreciate it regardless. Obviously, since I'll be taking you through the entire game, there will be spoilers, I guess, but I doubt anyone really cares about Kururin spoilers of all things, but still, I'll just say that as an informal warning, I guess. So yeah, let's go through all of the adventure mode and see what it has to offer. It should be pretty fun. Alright, so now that Kururin has finished all the tutorial stages, he's able to mutter a pathetic, "I guess I can fly better now." And so we just hop into the first real world, Grasslands. Extraordinarily creative name. So even though this is technically the first real world, the level design is still really basic stuff, expected for the first one honestly. There are some things to explain though. For one, you'll come across these big square heart areas, healing all of your HP once you make contact with it. It kind of acts like a checkpoint, except not really, because it doesn't respawn you there if you die. Though you can abuse these if you want. Say there's a tough section right after a heart area, well, you can always retreat and try again from that point with all your HP restored. This kind of exploit is only effective in like 2 areas in the game, so it's not that useful though. Now the goal area is also another big square area, but it acts like just a one and done, you made it sort of deal. The starting area on the other hand actually acts pretty similarly to the healing areas. You can't take damage while you're in here, and interestingly enough, the timer doesn't start until you exit it, which could lead to some nuanced strategies for time trials. But one of the more obscure features is, well, while you're in these areas, you can actually press select to cycle between 2 other sizes for your Helirin, along with your standard size, to make the level easier, I guess. Beating it with an abnormal size won't set a valid record though, which makes sense. Fun fact about this is that if you choose easy mode, which already reduces the length of your propeller, you can still press select here to decrease the length even more, and basically just have one that should pretty much be deemed cheating through the entire game. It's kind of funny, but I wouldn't recommend playing like this at all. Throughout these stages, you may have also noticed these flashing lines and spots along the ground. These, at least I'm like 90% sure, are supposed to be markers that indicate safe spots, ones where you can place the center of your Helirin on it and do a full 360 rotation without colliding with a wall. Guaranteed. Honestly, great addition, and really well telegraphed too. These are perfectly subtle while also being obvious for the average player to slowly figure out that's the purpose of these things as they go through the game. Though again, I'm 90% sure that's the purpose of them, but still pretty sure. And as you beat Grasslands 3, I feel that I have left something behind. Ellipses. I love this dumbass's face like, huh? Okay, so this cutscene in particular is supposed to tell you that you missed one of your Kururin siblings in the level that you just played. It also tells you this on the map. These guys are always just going to be out and about, just there for you to collect pretty much. Sometimes they'll be slightly out of the way, but never hidden really, and they're always going to be in the 3rd level of every world. And just as a side note, rescuing all of them is required to see the credits. As for the other 2 levels in a world, well, those also have one other collectible each. These are custom propellers, patterns, and colors that you can get for your Helirin, which you can change to in the makeup option from the main menu. You can also change your Helirin on the fly in the pause menu as well, which is kinda neat. Now these are just a bunch of wacky shit, just a lot of random shapes, patterns, color schemes. You can even choose to have your siblings on your Helirin, which is kinda cool. Even have all of them on there at once. Okay, that's fucking sick. It's like I'm showing off my family or whatever. Even pressing L and R will activate your horn and make them fly off, which is kind of an interesting yet absolutely useless detail. Oh yeah, you can do that, I guess, the horn feature. I guess it's just a thing they wanted to include so that all of the buttons on the GBA had some use. Curiously enough, the developers thought to have specific horn sounds for every combination of whether you're speeding up or not, as well as depending on which trigger you press. Like, look at the buttons I hold and just listen. Ah, fascinating. Just some obscure-ass, useless-ass Kururin knowledge. Okay, I'm done. Okay, I got way off track, but yeah, the makeup feature, to be honest, I never use it. I don't know, I just never dug some of the options they gave you for the custom Helirin skins. I just kinda think they look ugly, but that's just me. You can do whatever you want with this. I personally stick with the nice cyan and yellow color scheme. I mean, vanilla is good. Okay, back to the actual game. Going back to Grasslands 3, we can save our first sibling bird. This one is actually, like, almost impossible to dodge. They really wanted you to get him. In fact, when I did that little bit earlier of like, oh, I missed something, I actually spliced 2 clips together. Yeah, I just had to ruin the illusion for you, my bad. Anyways, got him now, and... Hi, Chikurin! Mom is worried about you at home! Brother Kururin! Thanks for coming. Hitting A one more time and you get this final image. That's just adorable. Look at him just chilling there. Fun fact, if you wait here for just a few seconds longer than you might usually do, you can see him yawn. I didn't fucking know that. That's amazing. But okay, I know I said this shit on my community tab months earlier, but this right here, this, in my opinion, is some of the rawest fucking dialogue I've seen in any video game, let alone any piece of media I've ever witnessed. Like, I stand fucking firm with that belief. The developers, writers, animators, whoever worked on this one cutscene, they went fucking crazy here. They cooked. They were actually insane for doing this shit. I genuinely believe this to be one of my favorite moments in any fucking game. So much so that when replaying this on the NSO a while back, I took like 50 fucking screenshots of it, recorded a video of me seeing it real time, and I even printed it out to hang up on my wall. One of the best parts is that one time I even got to experience the Japanese version of this cutscene, the original Japanese version. And guess what? It's even better in Japanese. No exact reason why, it just is to me. Alright, jokes aside, these little, cutscenes, and I'm saying that with as many quotation marks as I possibly can, they are legitimately one of the other huge reasons why I love this game so much. I said this earlier that I had many other huge reasons for liking this game a whole lot. This is one of them, and it's ginormous. What I adore about these scenes is that every time they happen, every time you have one of these little pointless conversations with one of your rescued siblings at the end of every world, The dialogue here lasts 2 text boxes at most. That's it. It's the most bare bones, to the point, celebratory cute little cutscene you can ever imagine. But I fucking love it. I can't get enough of these. The writing here is also some of the most deadpan I've ever read. Probably somewhat a result of all the text being a literal translation, if I had to guess. Like, you'll just come across one of your brothers and sisters, and they'll just say something completely unrelated to what Kururin said, in at most 5 fucking words. It's pitiful, but it's also supremely beautiful. I also just love how they don't move. They don't move. They just stay there. Like, these are just fucking pictures. These aren't even cutscenes at that point. They're motionless and are literally existing there without any changes in expression, only a stagnant face to associate with these bird creatures, usually one depicting joy, but nothing else. Those fucking birds sure are just standing there, huh? That's the other thing I love about this. This still image, this mere frame, it's somehow serene in composition. Like, these two beings always just stand perfectly spaced apart at opposite ends of the screen. I mean, if this isn't the most bare bones representation of a conversation in a video game between 2 characters, then I don't know what is. Anyways, after you've rolled through those 2 pieces of amazing dialogue, like I mean Jesus, truly astounding, you get to this lovely screen. Okay, I actually really love this. This is so adorable, dude. A heart-shaped head structure with your sibling birds all chilling on or around it. And as you rescue each of your siblings, another one gets added to the party, and they all just vibe there. It's actually really cute. And pressing A one more time, that's it. Back to the map screen to continue your everlasting journey. So yeah, you may have also noticed just how insanely short and abrupt these little scenes are. Like, you can really just mash the A button and just roll right on through. Honestly, that's kind of nice for speedrunning purposes, I guess. Like, in my mind, I can imagine the developers making it so easy to skip through them, as if to say, yeah, if you're a sick human being, then you can just fucking ignore them practically. I don't know, I think just overall the way these cutscenes are presented is just incredibly blunt, and that's what makes it so funny to me. They just pop up and hit you like a damn truck, almost catching you off guard in a sense. I guess it's weird to say that I love these cutscenes so much. I mean, again, you can hardly classify them as such, but again, they're just funny to me. That's pretty much it. And I can also mostly attribute that to the character designs, which I actually really do love them. Everyone in the Kururin family just looks so lovable, including Kururin himself, obviously. I mean, all of them are just funny as hell birds, huh? Huh? Yeah. Jokes aside, I really think they're all perfectly dopey and mopey with their animations, especially when they're just walking around. They're adorable looking, but also just weird and charming creature little guy dudes. That's honestly the best part. And that's mostly why I love the first cutscene with Chikurin so damn much. Like, dude, this pose he's in, his smile, his stupid design, and lack of anything else, it's so funny to me. Plus, the art style here is really what sells the humor of these characters to me. In these cutscenes, the birds are depicted almost in like a clay art style. Okay, definitely not clay, but it's just weirdly shaded, kind of like that. I don't know, that's the impression it gives off for me. It really adds to just the inherent goofiness of the Kururin family designs. In the end, these fuckers are soul characters to me, honestly. Like, I just love them all so damn much. They're so good. I guess speaking on the rest of the art style, that is, the art style you usually see in levels, it's pretty nice too, although I feel like it's nothing too noteworthy to write home about. It's just good, pretty good, all charming enough. That's all I gotta say, though the little expressions that Kururin makes in the bottom left corner as he gets hit more and more, love those. And even more interestingly, Kururin himself used to have a completely different design, pretty much unrecognizable in these wicked beta screenshots from when the game was revealed at Space World 2000. It's not too much to go off of, but this pre-release kind of stuff is always neat to learn about. Anyway, moving on to Ocean, finally. So this world's got levels that definitely step it up just a little bit with slightly tighter curved passages that you gotta line up with your rotation speed, and the official introduction of a new mechanic, springs. These were already sort of tutorialized to you if you chose to play those stages at the beginning, but here, well, hopefully you can start to get used to them because they are everywhere in this game and are proven to be vital. Hitting these will switch the direction of your Helirin's rotation, and man, these are great. I love the puzzle solving aspect that go with these, because sometimes, and I mean very occasionally, it actually may be best for you to just roll right past them and continue forward regardless. Like yeah, most of the time hitting these everywhere you see them is necessary for progressing, and is something you should do, but sometimes the game will basically force you to not do that, meaning they're essentially tricks thrown about, and that kind of thing just leads to an extra layer of thought process of having to actually evaluate the path ahead and see if it's right for you to stay clockwise instead of going counterclockwise as an example. It's good stuff. Don't worry too much about Ocean though. The game very clearly is still letting you get used to the basics and is making it very obvious how to get through due to the shape of these walls. I do want to mention the music here though. Like, you know, it starts off all pleasant and nice, but then like, weirdly gets really good about 40 seconds in? Damn, I like that. Those compressed drums too. This is honestly probably one of my favorite songs in the game. Alright, done with that, and oh, we have another one! Hi, Helirin! Mom is worried about you at home! Yup! What happened to me? Yeah, what a great fucking question, bitch! Alright, I gotta calm down. Hey, look at him just vibing down there. Aw, that's cute. Now we're at Jungle. You know, I'm starting to think these names are just very literal translations. Anyway, Jungle sort of expands on what Ocean established with the whole constant rotation, direction switching with the springs, and even tighter corridors to traverse. Not too much to say other than that, but the gorillas moving and grooving in the background are pretty funny to me, and also the music is rather catchy. And oh, here comes another one! Heh, look at this fucker. Hi, Gizarin. Gizarin, that's a cool name. Yeah, it's only because it has a Z. Mom was worried about you at home. Brother Kururin, I was scared by the gorillas. Oh, yeah, I guess they sure were just existing in that MF jungle, so yeah. Next is Cakeland. This is kind of a fun one. I feel like I've seen so many games do the whole candy, cake, sweets level gimmick already, but I don't know, it's kind of nice here. Including the music that plays being very relaxing, like I enjoy quite a bit. Level design wise, it's definitely getting twistier and lengthier here, but still doable. Also another thing, and you should definitely know this for future levels especially, but pressing pause, you can see there's an option called See Map, and choosing this literally lets you browse the entire stage's map you're on. This is actually a great feature and can potentially be super helpful for seeing what's next in the long run. What I kind of find curiously interesting about this though is that in the official PAL manual, which yes I did read for this video, now shut up, it says here that you can hold A to increase your altitude while using the See Map feature. But like, holding A in game, it just speeds up the movement. Now when I say something that says it increases your altitude, I'm thinking it zooms out technically, cause like, it's increasing altitude, elevation, going higher into the air, you know? I don't know, it doesn't really matter, like, at all, but I thought I'd mention it. Maybe I got this whole thing mixed up too, I don't know. But still, speaking on just generally helpful things for practicing, Teacher Hare at the beginning of the game makes a mention of the practice mode. Yeah, there's a practice mode that lets you practice each individual level in adventure mode, including practicing individual sections separated by the healing areas. Plus, every time you take a hit in this mode, it heals you automatically, so no real penalties taken. There's even demos that show you how to get through a stage, or again, even certain parts of a stage, in case you're stuck or whatever. This is actually a really cool and handy feature, and a very underappreciated one, I find. I mean, this is basically a built-in walkthrough for the entire game, and trust me, you may need it for the later levels too. Super helpful, honestly. Back to Cakeland 3, and hi, Helirin? Mom is worried about you at home. I want to go home, but also want to eat sweets here. You know what I like about these cutscenes that I haven't brought up yet? The writing never uses contractions, at least not to my knowledge. That kind of thing just makes the language sound more primitive and almost like it was written by a 7-year-old. But again, it's probably more so a result of these just being very literal translations of the Japanese text. Up next is Cave. Yup, it's just called Cave, nothing else. This one's interesting to me because as far as I know, this is the only world in the game where the 3 levels in it each have different aesthetics for each of the individual levels. Well, okay, the grounds for each have different colors, but it's still neat to me. Anyways, this is where the game really steps up in difficulty here, and I mean it. The second level here has an ending section with a damn maze of springs, and it's pretty tricky to trek through. The third level is also a tricky one, with this one notable section where you gotta wait for your Helirin to perfectly line up 90 degrees and just... yeah, great stuff. Actually love that part. Also with this world comes the introduction of moving obstacles. Finally some real variety and challenge in level design. As you can see, they come in the form of rolling spike balls here. I'd say they're not bad at this part of the game, but they're gonna reappear later on and be much harder to deal with. Also again, music here is good, like always honestly. I think this track in particular does a great job of stepping up the mood here, you know what I mean? Representing the big step up in difficulty as well. Whoa, this guy is big! Hi, Kirin. Mom is worried about you at home. I was buried deep in the mud. It was very hard. You know what? This guy kinda looks like that one Pokemon. Yeah, Makukita. I mean barely, but sort of? I don't know. Anyways, next is Cloudland. Teacher Hare says, watch out for strange shaped walls. I agree with this. The levels in this world have walls with shapes that are really strange and wacky, angular and equally fucked up. These kinda act like a puzzle in of itself and just figuring out the actual path forward, but still it's not that bad and I kinda like that aspect actually. Unfortunately, this is one of the only worlds to do this kind of thing of vague layouts with a strange design like this, but I guess I get why there's not too many of them. Overall, I kinda like its inclusion here, like it's not too terribly interesting, but it is rather pleasant in aesthetic, and of course the music. Hi, Warren! Mom is worried about you at home. I thought I would fly to the sky. Hope you're understanding the formula for these scenes by now. It's always the same, Mom is worried about you at home from Brother Kururin, then something related to the world you were just in from the sibling bird. Intriguing. The next world is Starland, and this one is probably the most infamous world in the game. Probably, arguably, maybe. But it's surely notable for its very interesting level design, to say the least, but also for the music, which is probably the most well-known song in Kururin, and for good fucking reason. It sounds really nice. I guess this is a good time to bring up the composer for this game, Atsuhiro Motoyama. Not only did he make the music for this game, but he also made the music for the other 2 sequels. And oh man, those soundtracks are just great. But here, he still really did a good job. I personally really enjoy the music for Kuru Kuru Kururin. It's sometimes groovy, but most of the time just catchy, and I really love how it just drops these really good sections on you. The music just feels like it doesn't care and just goes for it, you know? Weird way to describe it, but I hope you know what I mean. The soundtrack here also has a pretty distinct chiptune-like style. It almost sounds like OG Game Boy or Game Boy Color music at times, with how some songs really prioritize that kind of instrumentation. In fact, I could even go as far as to speculate that maybe this game was originally developed for Game Boy Color for most of its lifespan? I mean, the game was actually a freaking launch title for the GBA in both Japan and Europe back in 2001, so I mean, it could have been, though I'd likely more so believe the chiptune sound of the music was more of a deliberate, artistic decision. Well, I wish I could use a word other than chiptune to describe it. It's just those types of synthesizers that make it unique. Regardless, it's still really good. In fact, Motoyama's work on these games, including Paradise and Squash, hooked me so damn much to the point that I even tried to look into other stuff he's worked on. I couldn't really find much, though he did work on other aiding or rising games in the past. And hey, I also did find this wiki page for the Video Game Music Preservation Foundation, and apparently this is what he looks like? Interesting. Anyways, going back to Starland, the actual level design of this world is, again, all around interesting, and probably meant to show the team's experimental era of development when they were working on this game. So the first level is essentially just a big open area with a bunch of circular-like walls all bunched up with each other, and as you can see, it's all just a matter of figuring out which path to take, which the level vaguely lines out. There's technically multiple paths you can take, some way tighter and more challenging than others. The second level is more interesting. This time it's a very small area with a bunch of tiny squares that you have to vigorously dodge and weave around, hitting springs to twist and turn so you can barely slip through the cracks. It's very short, but can be pretty tricky. I dig it, honestly. But then there's Starland 3. I imagine this is a particularly infamous course among new players especially, starting off with this big area full of what seems like a fuck ton of springs randomly and sporadically placed every single which fucking way, and yep, it's just fun. Carelessly brute forcing your way through this damn maze of springs can often lead to pure adrenaline rush. But there is an intended way forward. By taking the long way around, you can... Yup. The next few hallways aren't too bad, but then there's the last section, hitting you with even more springs, now in the opposing direction of where you want to be heading for the goal. This part could be frustrating, truthfully. My best advice is just be really careful and just zip on through. It almost sends chills down your spine with how close you can get. In general, Starland has some really interesting level design for sure. I've even seen people criticize it just for how random and almost nonsensical it seems to be, as if this world wasn't well thought out, despite the great music accompanying it. But I don't know, I think I like this world overall. It is undeniably all over the place, but you know, I don't really think the developers put all these springs here just for shits and giggles to annoy the player. Because I mean, there was clearly a methodical layout in mind here, a path they wanted players to take for sure. But man, I can't deny it's got a funny reputation. I remember when my friend played this game for the first time and he got to this world. He was actually fucking stunned at the level design here. I think he actually just hated it, which was humorous looking back, but I don't know. I guess it's just another example of just misinterpreting the design of things when viewing them at a surface level. I mean, it's totally understandable here, and it's probably not a great example to bring up for Starland though. I'll just say that much. Oh, and as usual, hi, Helirin. Okay. Mom is worried about you at home. Stars are so brilliant like me. Oh wow, okay, I just now know everything about this character and what she's like now. Thanks! Anyways, next is Iceland. Yeah, honestly, I think this could be in the runner-ups for my least favorite world, or at least one of them, I don't know. I think it's mostly the aesthetic that's not doing much for me. I just think the idea of an ice world just rings forgettableness, but I guess it's still serviceable. But the thing is, they also really tried to make the levels here more like big sprawling mazes. Like the third one really amps that idea up, like geez. And I'm not sure if I'm the biggest fan of that either, although they aren't too hard to figure out, and of course you still have that C map function I mentioned earlier. Hi Pecorin, Mom is worried about you at home. Wow, I tripped over some rocks. Oh, I really like this dude's expression, he's funny. Though it's kind of weird he mentions rocks. I don't know if I saw any in the Iceland stages. Alright, now it's time for Machine Land. So being the second to last land, stages here get tough. There's a big emphasis on moving obstacles, all with their own cycles being really tricky to dodge, like these new moving pistons that shift back and forth. The way these are placed in the first level and how the rest of the stage is shaped around them do a great job at kind of teaching you how exactly to weave through them and time your Helirin's angle just right so you can zip on by. The second level has a bunch of rolling spike balls to avoid as you go down across the hallways, and eventually hits you with these sections where you just have to go for it and go with the flow of the spiked balls on either ends. And of course, the third level. This is honestly one of the hardest stages in the entire game, honestly, acting as a big grand test of dodging obstacles. Starting off with a new one, a bunch of cannons that fire at you. Here I feel like they're not so bad because you can really speed on through, but man, can they be annoying when they pop up later in the final world, trust me. Again, this level is just one big test. A lot of it is gonna have you contemplating on when to go and when to just fucking book it. There's gonna be a lot of that, so come prepared. This last section here is a really good example of that. It basically forces you to go into the foray and just improvise your movements once you're too deep to back out. All with the goal of just getting out of that maze of pistons as fast as you can. It's really good stuff. Man, there's no doubt that this level and all the other levels in Machine Land are gonna give you some trouble your first time around. It can be rough, honestly, but give it enough tries and I promise you, you will eventually beat them and feel good about it, don't you worry. Honestly, that's just another testament to how mastering this game can feel really good, and how well this game motivates you to do that simply through its easy to understand gameplay loop. It's fantastic. Also, there's something I've kind of neglected to mention up until this point, but in every world and every individual level to an extent, there are key background elements that are really charming, and all animated too. It's kind of hard to notice when you're so focused on the gameplay though. The reason I bring it up now is because Machine Land has gotta have some of my favorite background elements. This is when I started noticing them, like this green robot rabbit guy or other weird blocky robot fellas. Every other world has had some cool little guys in the backgrounds. We talked about the funny gorilla, but there's also UFO aliens, penguins, suns and moons, dudes on magic carpets, and even a monkey. I don't know, they add some nice liveliness to the stages, because for the most part, these are just gonna be like video gamey ass levels you explore and nothing more, so it's pretty sweet. And speaking on Machine Land, the music here is especially catchy. A lot of chiptune involved. In fact, this is probably the most overt song in that regard, in the entire soundtrack. It fits perfectly for this track though, just a great mechanical sounding song. Finally beating Machine Land 3 after enough tries, you get, "Hi Helirin, Mom is worried about you at home. I was shocked by the machines." Okay, so like obvious nod to the character design and the most deadpan sentence aside, does what Helirin says mean that every time the Helirin touches these pistons, it's actually getting shocked? I mean, since he got shocked by the machine, surely it could happen to your own helicopter, right? I don't know. Plus it makes the same bzzzt sound as it does when it colliding with the walls, and honestly, I'd be willing to believe that these are actually electrically charged strips, mostly because they flash and whatnot. Also, another thing I've neglected to mention, I like how every single one of these scenes have taken place on the same generic grass background. I don't know if they originally intended for these to have like different backgrounds corresponding to each world you were just in and you just ran out of time, or I don't know. There was a different background for when you were talking to Teacher Hare in the tutorial section, so I don't really know. Who fucking knows? And honestly, who fucking cares? I don't know, dude. But yeah, with that all out of the way, the final world is finally upon us. Welcome to Ghost Castle. It's obviously tough as nails, but honestly, I don't necessarily think it's harder than Machine Land, at least in my opinion. I think for the first two levels here, while difficult in their own right, they don't really step it up like crazy in comparison, but nonetheless, they are still challenging and also noticeably longer. Ghost Castle 2 is especially like this. Like, it's a fucking trek. It goes on for so long, and judging by the very angular ass shapes of these walls, you're gonna be making really tight turns and coming really close to colliding with them, which is gonna happen, let's be honest. Now, the third and final level in the game is a damn test. Starting with this wonky, flowery shape that you have to carefully weave through, quickly too. You have to hit these springs as soon as you can, pretty much, and there's no safe spots in sight. Afterwards are a bunch of rolling ball sequences you have to figure out the cycles for, as is traditionally difficult. And then the third and final section is a long one, full of cannons shooting at you. There's a heart area to indicate the start of this part, and after going past these two cannons up here, you can find a little safe spot. But just so you know, once you leave that safe spot, you gotta book it. It's at this point that you're in too deep and you can't back out. You really can't dilly-dally around because those cannons will fire and probably hit you. but the final last obstacle is all the way up here. Just hit this spring to switch directions and then just barrel right on through that final curve as soon as you can, diving head first into that goal. Once you're at that point, you can really rest easy now. You did it. I hope you rescued your final sibling along the way though. Man, is this final section a fucking pain in the ass, along with the rest of this level, Jesus. But it's good, rightfully so for the final test in my opinion. I remember my first time playing this, I'd always get up to this last part with all the cannons and then just shatter. I don't know, these cannons are also kind of dependent on RNG, so it's a bit up in the air whether you survive or not. But god, that glass breaking sound is just, ugh, it's like rubbing salt on an open wound. Overall, Ghost Castle 3 serves as a pretty good final challenge, I'd say, though I guess it's not particularly unique in aesthetics, since the music and visuals stay the same like the rest of Ghost Castle. It would have been nice if it was a one-of-a-kind stage, would have been better for a final send-off, you know, but it's whatever. Still good nonetheless. And here we go, Final Kururin! Hi, Helirin! Mom is worried about you at home. Yuck yuck! I was so scared, big brother. Dude even used a grammatically correct comma placement. Like, why are these dialogue boxes so damn formal sounding? But hey, there's the entire family, all rescued. Very nice to see. And with all of them saved, we get one last amazing cutscene. I'm home, all of my brothers are fine. I mean, you could have said siblings, you know that, right? Like, Kururin, you have 2 sisters too. At least I think? I actually don't think the game or any promo material / manuals actually confirms the genders of all his siblings. But just judging by their character designs, I want to say it's easy to see what characters the developers intended for to be female or male. But I guess, you know, who really cares? I hope no one gets mad at me for assuming pronouns on the Kururin family of all things. Anyways, big brother, thanks. Wait, what? I thought that was the mother. Okay, whatever. Congratulations! Well, that's really cute. And now the credits. I like this. It kind of copies the intro with how they're just walking to the left, except now it's at sunset. But honestly, I don't care. I love seeing these dumb little creatures walking all dopey-like. So good. And by the way, I know I mentioned this way earlier, but I'm gonna say it again. If you don't rescue all your siblings in each land, you won't get to see this credit sequence. So, guess you gotta do that to get the true ending to Kuru Kuru Kururin, huh? But I mean, who wouldn't, right? I mean, if you do get all the way to the end of the game without collecting all of your siblings, you get possibly one of the most pathetic ending cutscenes to any game in my opinion. And that's it for the adventure mode, and for most people, that's it for Kuru Kuru Kururin. This is the mode I imagine most people are probably willing to beat if they ever say, hey, I want to go through this game and say I've finished it. Again, it's short as hell, like I said way earlier, even if it is your first time playing and you're learning all the stages and whatnot. To give some perspective, the combined length of all my footage, which by the way has me doing literally everything in the game, totals up to just under 10 hours. And that's kind of short for, you know, literally doing everything in the game. In fact, to give you an even better idea for how short it is, a while back when my friend was playing through this game for the first time, I decided to do a funny little race with him, with me playing on NSO where I would start from Grasslands 1 and beat every level from there. And guess what? I beat him. But the real kicker is, I started all the way from the very start when he was already like halfway through the game. It was fun for me though, and honestly, Kururin makes for a good call kind of game. And yeah, it shows you could definitely beat it in one sitting, although don't count on doing that for your first time through, god no. Alright, so of course we're not done, not even close, like why would we? We still have quite a bit to go over. Okay, well first, staying in adventure mode, there's actually an extra secret world you can unlock. If you beat every single level in adventure mode without taking damage, which is indicated by the star icon on the map rather than the standard circle, you unlock the last land. Okay, first of all, doing all of that is pretty hard as you might expect. It took a lot of time, and it's much of the reason why my footage ended up being so long. Like, this amount of footage is an inaccurate representation of how long the adventure mode should take you. to. But I still did it, and you know, that's the thing. It's very much feasible and possible once you put the time into it. Anyways, the last land. Every level here is characterized by them being not really that difficult technically, but as a trade-off, they are very long and have no heart areas in sight. So it's still pretty difficult just because of the stakes here. I kinda like the atmosphere of the last land in a weird way. Like, it just has that vibe of it being the final world you can ever see in the game. Empty, with no sighting of any obstacles, as well as a lack of animated background elements. It's just a nice little send-off for those who want to experience everything there is in Kururin. Though, even if you beat these without taking any damage, you don't get anything new, so you probably shouldn't bother with doing it like I did. Alright, done with adventure mode, and as we go back to the main menu, well, we've covered everything except for challenge and versus mode. Let's talk about challenge mode first. This is basically a mode where you can play through a series of, in total, 50 bite-sized levels, all present with the same toy, blockish background thing. They increase in difficulty as you go in sequential order, indicated by the increasing level on the left side of the menu. Like I said, these are really short, but are a nice addition, each of them testing some kind of small but useful skill, and of course, as the name puts it, they're nice challenges. Now, much like adventure mode, if you beat every challenge stage without taking any damage, you'll unlock level 11, with 5 extra secret short levels that are also pretty damn hard. Like, this last one in particular is just really tough to figure out. I mean, look at this, man. It's a huge puzzle in of itself with these piston cycles, but it's one of those things that really forces you to experiment with different maneuvers around the stage, and eventually it all magically works. And after that, you've experienced all the levels that Kuru Kuru Kururin has to offer. We still have versus mode to go over, which, trust me, we'll get to near the end. But for now, I think it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, the speedrun appeal of this game. By this point, you've probably definitely noticed the timer in the top left corner when playing on these stages, as well as the top 3 record times on the map screen for every level. This is definitely something the game greatly encourages, speedrunning the levels. Well, not really like professional speedrunning obviously, but just generally getting faster at beating each level. I mean, this kind of thing is also very obvious with how it adds 3 seconds to your time whenever you hit a wall, and you know, you could easily choose to not give a shit about that. In fact, you most certainly can. I mean, I definitely did when going through these games for the first time. But speedrunning this game, again, you know, like casually, going through the levels as fast as you can, it's like opening a whole nother can of worms, let me tell you. Okay, well, starting off with the best times you're able to beat right now, which are all apparently owned by Hair P, which is supposed to stand for Professor, and the second time is owned by Teacher Hair. Okay, hey, that's something we do know from the tutorials and stuff. So the Professor Hair times, they may seem challenging at first, but aren't really anything that seems totally unfeasible at first, you know? Trying to beat them still did take me quite a bit, but I was still getting used to playing this game as efficiently as possible, so it makes sense. But because of all that, these times are not the worm can opener I'm talking about, but I guess they're still fairly challenging for newcomers. Because now it turns out, if you beat every Professor Hair time, there's a reward. I'm willing to bet a lot of people who've played Kururin probably didn't know this, because you have to not only beat all the times in adventure mode, but also challenge mode and get first on every single one, except for the extra unlockable stages, which, I mean, thank God no record times appear for those, honestly. Anyways, your reward for being a professor at Kururin is... Are you in a cutscene?! I kid you not, this actually blew my mind a little bit. Well, so much to the point that I even took a picture of this, yeah. I mean, it just caught me off guard. Like, again, these scenes just hit you like a truck and come out of nowhere, dude. Okay, this, at least to my knowledge, is a separate new character, different from Teacher Hair, or maybe he decided to play dress up here. But even still, he introduces himself as if he's a separate being. But anyways, I'm Professor Hair. You have done a great job in beating my score. You have exceeded me in skill, so I'll give you a professor degree. Congratulations! Hang on, he just used a contraction. That's impressive. So what he means by that is now there will be a little P badge next to your file name, as well as one associated with all your new times. Nice. Fun fact, you also get a separate cutscene if you beat all of just the teacher hair times, which is interesting. It's nothing too special, and it just does the same thing as the professor hair scene, just gives you a T badge as a lower degree of honor, I guess. But now, this is where it gets exciting in my opinion. After this, the game gives you newer, harder, and even lower times to beat now, all owned by Hair M, meaning Master Hair. These are the master times, and they mean business, cause good fucking lord are these hard to beat. I actually sort of considered not going for these at all because I had heard from people, and by people I mean a single GameFAQs walkthrough, that these were especially difficult to beat. But after getting the P degree, I thought I would just, try it out and give the first few levels a shot, cause why not? And also because I really wanted to see everything in Kururin if I could. And I ended up beating them after enough tries, and suddenly these started to seem fairly feasible now, at least at the point I was currently at. This was kind of interesting to me, because yes, these times are incredibly strict sometimes. Like, some of these I could only beat by just a few fucking milliseconds. But then there were some where I still took a hit, cost me 3 seconds, and still got the record. I think on one occasion I had 2 misses and still got it. In fact, to go even further, with some of these levels I apparently already had the best time. Okay, that's wild, but I mean, still. Don't underestimate these Master Hair times, holy shit. I still think they're like a whole nother fucking beast. I mean, at this point, it was like I was playing through a new fucking game entirely. It was a game of constantly trying to find these wicked fast shortcuts that saved mere seconds, speeding up at a moment's notice and at every which way I could so picture in my mind, and just generally cutting those corners like crazy. I mean, that's the thing. You could very well go through almost the entire adventure mode without speeding up. Okay, well, most of the time. There are still parts where it's absolutely necessary to book it, but I mean, god damn, with these fucking master times, you're gonna find that speeding up by slamming down on both A and B is the name of the game. It'll become second nature. And of course, with the whole 3-second penalty when you get hit by something, you're gonna also find out that you basically have to beat every level almost flawlessly for maximum efficiency. This second run through Kururin Crazy, this was actually a huge revelation for why I loved this game so much. The speedrunning aspect of it, like, oh man, it is a whole new experience. But you know what I love about this? You know what I love so damn much about this? Is that it's very easy to see, to know, that you can in fact beat these times. I mean, this is the case at least for me. But so many times I would get so close to beating the master record, but just barely not get it, Only missing by maybe a few seconds, or hell, a few milliseconds. This is honestly amazing. Beating these master times reinforces that idea of the deceptively simple nature of the gameplay to Kururin. It's easy to get into, and easy to see how you can get good at. It's just only time and practice that'll get you to that point that you want to be at to hold the newest record. It's that kind of perfect balance of still being really damn difficult to get to a certain high enough skill level in this game, while also being perfectly reasonable and possible to see that you even can. The idea of potential and how easy it is to turn it into reality. That's the thing I love about Kururin. And for me, I really wasn't expecting to actually beat all of these master times. Up to this point, I had seen this whole thing as something only the best of the best could do, stuff that would require professional, technical-ass speedrun tricks. But I was still able to do it, and I consider myself a casual player still. But obviously, casual or professional, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is just that pretty much anyone can beat these times. And I think that's what really started to captivate me when playing. Even if these times are still fucking hard, like really, really strict at times. I mean, they are still so fucking strict and require a lot of concentration. Honestly, I have no idea how I just blasted through most of these, because I play these levels now, at a more casual level mind you, and I'm like, geez, how did I even get that low of a time? And that was only a few days after I'd gotten these records. I mean, I guess I was just really focused when trying to beat them, as I was leaning down in my chair, all hunched over, and literally fucking burning my thumb on that D-pad. God. I abused this D-pad and my thumb really started to hurt, but honestly, the controls still worked really well for me. I really got used to the feel of it all after playing these for such a long time. And having such ultra precision is now something synonymous I associate with this one control pad. Like, Jesus, it was almost anxiety-inducing playing like this, just instinctively yet precisely zipping all around. Yet having some of those rare cases where you just have to wait and then get back to it. I actually kind of like these little slow moments of gameplay where you just have to wait for your Helirin to spin ever so slowly, just enough so you can move right along again. It kind of does a cool job at breaking up the action nicely for me, actually. Anyways, slowly but surely I worked my way through all of the levels again, this time in backwards chronological order, just because I thought it would make it better to save the easier levels for last. I was wrong about that. Here, how about this? I'm just gonna bring up a few examples of some really hard master times that I had to beat, ignoring the last land cause there's none there, and starting at Ghost Castle. Apparently I had already gotten the record on Ghost Castle 3, which I don't fucking know how that happened, but then there was Ghost Castle 2, which was really fucking hard to do. I mean, like I said earlier, this level is extremely long, but I was kind of exhilarated playing it still, in a weird way. There were just so many moments where I found really wicked methods for cutting those corners, like this one is my favorite. By the way, as a little technical strat you can incorporate into a lot of these levels, you can stay in the starting area, as the timer doesn't start here, and wait for your Helirin to rotate to a certain cycle, and then zoom out and exit, starting the timer in the process. I think this ends up saving maybe like a second at most in many cases, but it's still fun to figure this stuff out. Moving on, then there's Machine Land fucking 3. God, this one sucks. It being a level where you normally have to be really careful about these cycles, amping it up with a pretty strict time to beat makes it way more difficult. You really just have to zoom on through these things and not waste any time you'd usually spend thinking in place. It's a lot of figuring out how to just line up your Helirin with these piston cycles, while also being as fast as you can while doing that, through trial and error of course. God, it took me like maybe an hour, but it was worth it in the end. Alright, for some reason, Iceland 2 is surprisingly extremely strict, and thus very difficult. The fastest path I could find at least was through here, and for the life of me, I just could not seem to get it. I tried almost everything. I tried making myself a straight line down here as fast as I humanly could, just so I could zip through this spring area. It almost never worked without me bombarding with a wall on the way though. I also even tried clipping through the wall at the starting area, but yeah, that didn't work. Though interestingly enough, it counted me as exiting the starting area many times because it kept adding 3 seconds. Eventually I did beat the master time by just going the intended way, well, quote unquote. Just really have to do it fucking fast as fuck. Like, Jesus Christ, that time was insanely strict, only beat it by a few milliseconds. Starland 3 was kind of a tricky one for me. At first I was really worried about this one, because I had already sort of struggled to get a much better time when I was trying to beat just the professor time for this one. But then I quickly learned about this wicked cool shortcut at the beginning that lets you just bypass the huge spring jamboree. That's sick as hell. And at the end, you really just have to be quick on your feet and slip on by. Nice. Cloudland 3 was rather interesting, as with how many micro gaps there are in this level due to how it's uniquely designed, you may think it could prove great opportunities for some insane shortcuts, but these micro gaps are really damn tiny, and there's just no way to get through most of them, except for this last one at the end. It was insanely tight, and I was really trying to go for it, and after enough attempts, I eventually just happened to slip right on by without any mistakes. Probably not the intended method for beating this master record, but I'm still proud of that, I don't care. I also want to mention Cave 1. It is a pretty notable one just for requiring very technical movement. You gotta be really precise with your timing on these springs to get the record. Like, Jesus. You have to get the angle just barely right as you bounce back. Super tough to get through this one efficiently, but I dig it. It's kinda fun in a mechanical way. And honestly, that's about it when it comes to the notable levels I wanted to mention for the master times. There's a lot more little technical stuff that I had to pull off just to shave off a few seconds for more of these stages, but I won't go over them for the sake of time. but I mean, it's still really cool. Now that's not it. You obviously have to beat all of the master times in challenge mode, but since they're all really quick levels, they're not nearly as hard, though the times are still really strict. Some of these were fairly difficult to figure out, honestly, and a good handful of them I was only able to beat by mere milliseconds again, but that's probably because I just got them after making a mistake or two and just didn't feel like going back to improve them any further. Thank God you don't have to do any master times for level 11. Like, geez, imagine doing that last level for that. Well, I was nearing the end at this point, truly, and there was only one master time left to beat. I was really looking forward to seeing the cutscene that would follow, as it should have been the final one in the game. And, you know, I'll just say this, be prepared, cause it's a trip. I'm Master Hair. No kidding, I was defeated. No one will defeat you. Why does that sound so ominous? Great, wonderful, excellent. What is this? What is this dialogue? I mean, again, they probably just very literally translated from the Japanese version, but I mean, it's still funny as hell to me. I want you to continue improving your skills. Amazing! Okay? Well, that was one hell of a cutscene. I honestly really wonder how many people have actually seen that. Like, it's pretty obscure, but honestly, I regret nothing about doing all of this just to see that last thing in the game. I'm personally a sucker for seeing every last little secret in a very niche game I really like, so this one final cutscene, it was a great reward for me at least, along with the M badge you get. Super well hidden too. What a journey, honestly, I'd definitely say that. After going through the entire game again, I'd say I've basically improved my Kururin skills quite a bit by just being a lot more strategic, precise, technical, and even improvisational with my movements, just because of what those master times force you to do, pretty much. But obviously, like Master Hair says, he still wants you to continue improving your skills even after all this time, because it's still only up from here. Yeah, you can get way better at this game. The skill here basically comes in layers, obviously to a point of where playing those old levels you thought were once hard are now kind of a cakewalk, done in like 2 tries maybe. At least that's how it is for me. Now, if you've seen actual speedruns of Kuru Kuru Kururin before, then you know it's insane, and weirdly satisfying to watch. Of course, partly because they don't have to adhere to the in-game time penalties. And then there's the task that's just really funny most of the time. Yep, it's pretty much like that for every stage. Ridiculous. Obviously, it's probably physically impossible to get as good as tasks, but I mean, the sky's the limit in terms of how skilled you want to get at Kururin, which is partly why I love its gameplay so much. Like, overall, I really didn't think a puzzle game this simple design would be this deep in actuality. And alright, we're really nearing the end now. But we still have one more mode to talk about before I close out this video. We've done all the other ones, except for this one. That's grayed out, normally. It's Versus mode, only accessible with the elusive ability that is Game Boy Advance Game Link Cable Play. I think that's the official name. Now, normally I wouldn't be able to get authentic footage of this at all, just because of the necessity of needing a lot of physical hardware and physical people to actually play this with. But thankfully, Nintendo Switch Online has this covered pretty nicely. Like, again, say what you will about NSO, but the fact that it has online functionality for Game Boy games that would require the Game Link cable back in the day is actually super cool and hella convenient. Of course, that convenience is entirely dependent on whether your friends have the $50 expansion pack or not, but that's beside the point. I was still able to get 2 of my friends to play with me, Retro and Tyler. Tyler has played the game, Retro has not, haha. By the way, Tyler was the dude I mentioned earlier saying he disliked Starland. Sadly, no 4th player, so I wasn't able to see what the elusive 4th color was for the last Helirin. Man, I was super upset about that. Like, I really want to know what that 4th fucking color is. Wonder what the fuck that shit is! Alright, so the Versus mode in Kuru Kuru Kururin is pretty simple. You can choose to play either a set of random stages or stages that you decide on. And it's just the challenge mode levels. Yeah, that's pretty much it, except you're racing to the finish, that kind of thing. Though, I think one of the most bizarre features of this mode is how you can basically handicap yourself. So like, you can control how much HP you have, for some reason, but you can also control your own Helirin's propeller length. Man, you can really make it any size you want. So much so that, yeah, I'm not kidding. This is just something you could do in the damn versus mode. You could just fucking fly around as a circle. This is actually preposterous. Like, this is undeniably cheating, dude. It looks so stupid too. It's like you're controlling a fucking UFO spacecraft thing. And what's so funny about all of this is that this is controllable on your own behalf. You yourself can decide if you want to cheat or play fair. So like, for instance, everyone else can have this standard right-sized Helirin, and then you could just basically say fuck you to your friends. Yeah, that's just fair, huh? What a fair fucking advantage to have, huh? Honestly, you could really easily twist this into a genuine critique of the game, but I don't care, honestly. This isn't such an obscure mode that it doesn't really matter. And besides, it's fucking hilarious. It was really, really funny finding this out when we all played.
It's just a fucking circle.
But it's fair and balanced, I'm for it.
He tells you about the meaning of life or something.
No!
He's just zooming away! Single ball time!
It just looks so fucking stupid.
Overall, versus mode in Kuru Kuru Kururin, it's something I dig. Honestly, me and my friends had some fun with this, even if it was just a simple race to the finish thing, but we still had fun, mostly goofing around.
Having fun. Yeah, let's just have a fucking party, man.
Of course, we mostly just laughed at the idea of just going ball mode, as well as quote-unquote poking fun at the level design, because it turns out one of us had never played this game, and it was just really funny seeing him try to brute force his way through the levels.
I just like brute force fucking everything.
Now we're not done yet, because there is something really interesting I want to bring up. So the footage that you've been seeing is footage of if you were playing the Kururin versus mode, if everyone else had their own Kuru Kuru Kururin cartridges. Or game packs. Yeah, I remember when that was what Nintendo called them. So yeah, this is essentially the most true Kururin multiplayer you can get. But, and I don't really know why, but for some reason, Nintendo Switch Online has the function of single pack play. Now this is some cool shit. Basically, how this would work back in the day is if everyone else didn't have a copy of the same game as you did, then through the game link cable, it would download and send the necessary information and data from your game over to everyone else's. It's like the precursor to DS Download Play, if you remember that. Download Play. Yeah! Anybody remember that? Sure had some heavy hitters, man. Anyways. Realistically though, I think this would be the method that like 90% of players would use for most games, especially in the case of Kururin. I mean, who knows how many copies sold in the PAL territories. If you wanted to experience true Kuru Kuru Kururin 4-player multiplayer with 4 original cartridges, it'd be some tough fucking luck. Like, it would be easier to get the band Witchfinder General back together than trying to find 4 people, let alone all with Kururin carts. Alright, jokes aside, I think it's actually insanely cool that NSO even includes the option of playing through this way. I'm guessing mostly for preservation, or maybe some games weirdly have different modes and stuff like that, only accessible with single pack play. I have no idea. Regardless, I always thought the concept of sending data through, like, cables and shit for handheld games was super cool. I mean, I'm sure lots of people will know about how the e-reader worked and stuff, and the Game Boy cable for GameCube, and how you could hook it up for stuff like Animal Crossing and whatnot. But you know, I remember with the whole DS Download Play feature back then, which I don't think used any cables, I had actually played Mario Kart DS with my siblings through local multiplayer this way, and I always thought it was real interesting how this is the only way you could play as Shy Guy, like he was exclusive to just this mode, and I remember this all worked with my 3DS too. Yeah, they had that shit preserved on 3DS, how cool is that? Man, I always thought this kind of stuff with how Nintendo did local multiplayer was just super fascinating. Really interesting looking at how it all worked back then too. Now, oftentimes when you did play on the receiving end of single pack play, it would lessen the experience to say the least. Lower quality graphics, reduced quality of sounds, all that stuff. According to the official manual for Kururin, it says that portions of the graphics and sound for players 2 to 4 may be abridged. And yeah, that's actually true here. I immediately noticed that there was just no music anywhere, and also the HUD elements on the level select screen were noticeably lower quality, as well as the sound effects being, I think, lower quality as well. I don't know actually, I couldn't really hear well among my friends talking and whatnot, but it would make sense. Still, it's Kururin, even with all the downgrades. Honestly, that download time that you have to wait for at the beginning doesn't last long at all. Kind of impressive to me it's able to send this much data to have a functioning game and whatnot in that short amount of time. Maybe I don't know everything about that, and maybe it isn't as impressive as I'd like to believe though. But yeah, overall, Versus Mode in Kururin, nice addition. Not mind-blowing or anything, but it's fun and serviceable for sure. Well, that's it. I mean, yeah, that's it. That was all of Kuru Kuru Kururin. Literally everything that I wanted to talk about in the game, which means everything in the game, I talked about. I'm satisfied with that. Honestly, what more can I say that I just somehow haven't already? This game is really, really good. It's an incredibly fun, addicting, and especially captivating yet super simple to understand action puzzle game with so many layers of strategy tucked into just the gameplay alone, all with such a high enough skill ceiling that's so easy to get sucked into, even as a new player. Plus, it's challenging too, like, man, can you believe that on top of all the other sublime qualities this game has to offer? I mean, it's just a really great concept as well, even if it may not be entirely original and could be technically inspired by something. It's still inventive, despite how really bare bones it may seem on the surface. But again, that's actually part of why I love it. It's just a great game of spinning a stick, avoiding walls all at its core, and nothing else. Nothing that the game tries to shoehorn in, at least. This is the kind of puzzle game I love, action-oriented ones. You know, something like Dr. Mario or Tetris may have the edge in pure strategy kind of games, but Kururin, it feels unconventional yet very deep in its gameplay. Honestly, it's probably become one of my favorite puzzle games ever, hands down. And all of this I have to say for a game where you play as a literal spinning line. While on that note, it's kind of no wonder, but is also a wonder, why so many people actually like this game. That meaning the people who do actually try it out, which I imagine is not many, chances are those people who do give it a shot will like it. Quite a bit even. It's kind of surprising, since this is such an obscure game, honestly. Yet it seems to have been met with critical acclaim from those who've played it. So many people have been introduced to it and have loved it, which is so great. Like, if you haven't played it yet and you do own the Switch Online expansion pack, then please do play it. It's a really good time. It being originally made for the GBA also adds to that quick bursts of gameplay appeal too, which translates perfectly into the Switch's portable nature. Nice. And if you really want, you can trade out the Joy-Cons or Pro Controller for the Super Nintendo controller they released, for the better D-pad. Works pretty well, but not as good as the 3DS's if I'm being honest. Like, I find that a really clicky and especially responsive D-pad works wonders for Kururin. Still, I fucking love this controller. You know, I'm now thinking about it, but how cool would it have been if they released like GBA or OG Game Boy styled controllers that had like the original buttons and stuff just for these games? Could have been a neat concept. Well, even still, playing Kururin nowadays in official means is all dependent on whether you want to pay for the expansion pack. I mean, you do get that rewind feature, but you know, I try to discourage that if I can. If you don't want to pay for it, then I guess you can look into piracy, but you know, I'm not going to endorse that. Also, I'd like to just talk about Switch Online in general for a sec. Again, it's flawed in many ways. It just seems pathetic and abnormally modeled compared to Nintendo's other attempts at bringing their old games to new platforms via emulation. But I actually really like how the games are presented on their apps. Well, mostly. First of all, having high-quality versions of the box art to choose your games in a menu like this, while not really visually interesting at all, I still like this, just because some of these box arts have never been seen in this quality before, as well as being this color accurate too. That's a first for many. Fun fact, that's how I actually got the Japanese box art for the thumbnail. I took a zoomed-in screenshot on my Switch and had to do a bunch of editing, so it was just the artwork and no logos or anything. And yeah, there you go. Anyways, back to the online service, the emulation is also probably Nintendo's best yet, rock solid for all of their platforms, except for N64 I guess, which was a dumpster fire when that first launched. but I heard they greatly improved it with patches and all that stuff. But their 2D console emulation is great. This goes especially for their Game Boy and Game Boy Advance services. I actually really like how they have the different display options, you know, to simulate the ugly green tint of the original model display, but also the smudging of frames and the dot matrix screen. A really nice addition that I feel like not many people talk about. And for GBA, all games are displayed in a lighter color palette than what you'd usually find on PC emulation. Now, I want to imagine this is actually a deliberate decision by Nintendo to make the GBA games look closer to how they did on the original model displays, with the colors more washed out and everything. Of course, it isn't entirely accurate, I can imagine, but I gotta say, I actually think GBA games look better with this slightly washed out color palette, just because a lot of games on that system would really oversaturate the colors, almost to an eyesore-inducing degree. So this is something I really enjoy about NSO. Honestly, it really makes you think about how GBA games were intended to look versus their true RGB color palettes. Plus, you can toggle on the display option that makes it look like the OG Game Boy Advance screen, with the dot matrix and softer edges to pixels. Again, it's not super accurate in its colors. I mean, it would definitely not be this bright on the actual model, but again, super cool. I really wish it was like this for the other apps though. Like, the NES and SNES online apps have the scanline feature, I guess, but I don't know, it's really nothing special for authenticity purposes in my opinion. And N64 has almost no options for display. I actually really hate how you can't control anything about the appearance of the N64 games on Switch Online. Like, it looks bad to me with these higher resolution models. Like, look at freaking Mario Party for instance. These boards are very obviously meant for a 240p native output resolution at best, but because you can't do anything about it here, the app upscales the model resolution while the boards stay looking really crusty. It looks awful, honestly. I guess consistency is definitely not Nintendo's strong suit. I could go on and on about all their weird inconsistencies of how they've priced games and whatnot in this console generation, but I'll just let it slide for the sake of time. And speaking of which, time. This video took a long time to watch probably, and a long time for me to make. Honestly, I don't really care anymore about how I'm quote-unquote incapable of making shorter videos. I've just kind of accepted it at this point. I used to do this whole stupid self-aware bit in a lot of videos where I'd be like, man, cannot believe it took me that long to talk about this or that. And I don't know, the length of videos is just one of those things I want to start embracing a lot more. I want to forgo that tired old trope I just decided to keep for so long. Jeez, it got really annoying for me. I honestly think in the case of Kuru Kuru Kururin, with the video being this fucking long, I think it really represents how you can find a lot of your own personal meaning in really, really simple games sometimes. As much as you usually can in like a groundbreaking RPG or adventure game with a really deep story and all that. I mean, Kururin is what, like 3 hours long, tops? There's practically no story, gameplay is really damn simple, so it's just one of those things where the allure of an hour-plus long video on such a short, maybe even nothing game, it's mostly just a really funny concept than anything else. But I don't know why, but this game genuinely means a lot to me. So much so that I wanted to be as in-depth as possible with it in this video. Again, I think that really says that yes, you can get so much out of a game, or any other media, even if it seems stupendously simple, and no one else may care about it. Because it doesn't matter what other people might think, as long as something means that much to you on a personal level, you're allowed to show your love for it, you know? Whether by making a really long video or just talking with your friends for hours on end about it, you shouldn't be afraid, embarrassed, or even ashamed of the possibility that you're wasting your time with that, because it shouldn't be a fear of yours. It shouldn't exist at all. I mean, for me at least, I'm not gonna say Kururin changed my life or anything. It's not like it was a meaningful piece of fucking art that altered my view on video games as a whole. But it's just a game that I really, really like, and I wanted to make a really long, detailed video on it. That's about it, and nothing more. Well, okay, Kururin is not just a single game. When I refer to this game as just Kururin, I was doing that to save time, but Kururin, that name, can also refer to the series, and the bird, I guess. And I bring that all up because I'm definitely gonna do the other two games, Paradise and Squash. Hopefully I can do them at all, because I'm really excited to cover Squash in particular. That should be fun. The thing is, those games never released outside of Japan, but even still, they got English fan translations. I don't know how, I really don't know how there's fan translation patches for both sequels to Kururin. But yeah, that's crazy. I do have to say, speaking on translations, the official localization of Kuru Kuru Kururin, the first game, that being the PAL release, is actually really faithful as far as I could tell. In fact, I think it could be one of the most faithful localizations I've seen for any game, one published by Nintendo too. I mean, I feel like a lot of Nintendo games are notorious for insane regional differences, so that's partly why I'm shocked. But here in Kururin, a lot of things were just translated and not much else. Pretty obvious with the bare bones world names, and of course all of the writing is free from any grammar or syntax errors, so it is really quality. Although it probably wasn't much work for the localizers, I can't imagine there being very much text at all in the game. Well, one regional difference is that the announcer voices sound different, but that's for obvious reasons. That's kinda neat as hell. You know, I always thought the PAL announcer sounded like they were saying spot instead of start, but you know, GBA compression and all that. Also, the logo is obviously different. But, you know, I find it pretty cool actually that the PAL release kept the name the exact same as the Japanese one. You'd expect them to come up with some corny title in order to appeal to Western audiences or something, but nah, they didn't. Kinda commendable, I gotta say. Now, the only thing I did notice that was peculiar was slight, and I mean very slight, lag? Only in the Japanese version. Whenever you beat a level and it transitions into the results or whatever. Like here, see if you can notice. This is the PAL version, and here's the Japanese version. I don't know, maybe I'm just imagining. The thing is, I only played the Japanese version for maybe a couple minutes, so I definitely didn't see everything. If there's any other regional differences out there, please let me know, because I'm always interested in that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, final thing. There's apparently a Chinese IQ prototype of the game. It's interesting and novelty, but honestly, I literally just got done with making the script completely, and I only just now found out about this. So I don't have much to say about it here, other than that it's, again, an interesting novelty. That logo looks well made though. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I really did want to talk about everything, and I'm pretty happy I did. That's something I actually want to try aiming for, mainly with new videos, just talking about literally everything I want to about one game, all in one video, no matter how minor. I mean, literally the way I revise scripts is mostly by just adding random tidbits over the next few days after I write the initial draft and stuff. I've been doing that over and over for this video, and it's just gotten longer and longer, and yeah, kinda explains why sometimes my scripts can be all over the place in organization. But you know, to me, as long as I mention everything I intended for, I'm good. And yeah, I know, even when it gets to the conclusion section of the video, it still doesn't end. But overall, I still really hope you enjoyed this video. Even if you don't know what Kururin is at all, I really appreciate that you still watched to the end. So thank you, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you sometime soon, hopefully for Paradise and Squash. Bye.
Some smells good. Some smells good.
For video games, you need to set.
Wait, why
Why does this box art not have the dude on it?
Because
Let's
it's
see.
it's the European
Yeah.
box art. I almost said American. That game never came out in America. I think we have to thank how lucky we are that that Kururin's even on the Switch Online thing anyway.
80. Wait, okay, well, I need
Or
to,
80
Okay.
divided by 5. That's 16, so we'd all be paying 16
well,
each.
do you even have enough
Alright.
do you even have enough right now?
Here we go.
Yes.
Here we go.
Crazy Ren?
I just can't join, I guess, huh? I've barely played this game like at all.
Oh shit.
Yeah, you just don't get to play it.
Wait, there's 2 people. Wait, am I not in? Oh wait, no, I'm in.
No, how do I do this, you guys?
What is happening? Oh wait, what?
Wait, that's me. Wait, what?
Are you the blue one?
No, I'm the blue one. Yeah. Wait, I can't speed up. Wait, what? What the fuck is happening?
Terrible. It's awful, guys. Like, how is it supposed to change your life?
Someone
Oh,
that
M4 quote. Wait, can you only do 2 people?
No, you can do up to 4 people, I think. Because there were 4
it
things.
must be because there's space for 4.
Yeah, that's right, because 4 people want to play Kururin all at once, don't they?
Hold on.
This is supposed to
Close
change
out
your
of like
life,
the
okay.
entire thing. Let's relaunch the whole thing.
No, well, I mean, it changed your life, but it's really easy to change your life
Okay.
in 4.
Connecting GBA link cable. Wait, hold on.
Okay.
my god! Oh my god!
Alright. Are you in, Tar? Are you in?
I'm in, yeah. Yeah, I think I'm player 2. Wait, no.
You can choose your size as well.
Wait, you can choose your size? What?
You
Wait,
can go circle. Be a circle.
I could just be a
Circle
ball.
in.
Okay.
How do you add? What is like the heart thing?
That's your.
I don't know. I think that's how many hits you can take.
Oh.
Where's the?
Okay.
What about the part where
Oh, I see.
Kururin bird
Okay.
comes out and looks at you deep
It's just a
that
fucking
is-
circle.
the camera?
But
And
it's
it's
fair and balanced, them for
He tells you about the meaning of life or something.
No.
He's just zooming away! That is just fucking fair and balanced!
Who cares about this stupid crazy ring?
I'm gonna fucking touch you, Luggo.
Alright, I'll extend a little bit.
You can't fucking do that! Okay, fuck you.
Balance.
Why can you do that?
Goodbye. Wait, no, he's just going fast! Ah!
Crazy
I'm
ring.
gonna beat you up for it.
Where's the message about the meaning of life?
I think pressing both at the same time speeds you up even more.
I think if you press home,
Yeah, you're right.
X, right, and A, then something cool happens.
Yo, yeah.
Yeah, A and B makes you go real fast. Just one of them.
Well,
This is just
This is just fair and balanced!
fucking 15 misses.
M4, no. 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 Don't you
Be a
fucking dare.
circle.
Balanced.
No, I just can't fucking do this shit.
What do you mean balanced?
Oh. Oh.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Fuck! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
No.
Oh my god!
Yeah, this is just making it in the video.
Oh my god! I did it, guys. Don't worry. Oh my god! Oh my god! Fuck! M4! Oh my god! M4, it's okay if I just... It's okay if we just...
So
You
stupid.
know? It's okay if we just...
Oh no.
Wait, no! Time lost! No!
Yes! Wait, so did you get points solely on how fast it is, or?
I think it's how fast you did it and what place you got.
Wait, what stage was that? Wait, what?
You know, my line is gonna be spinning soon.
I
Yeah,
have so many
baby!
points.
You don't have to go there.
I really fucking hate that you can't speed your shit up in this one.
Circle time.
Single ball time!
It just looks so fucking stupid.
On the last level. Retro.
Yeah, that's just fair.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Bounce?
You know Paradise is multiplayer?
I'm not sure.
Not that we couldn't fucking play it, but
We could set it up through GBA, I think.
This is gonna be fair, huh?
yeah, I wonder who's gonna win this one. Fuck. Fuck.
Yep.
Well, I guess I'm playing on one heart now too.
Oh yeah, this is not doable for me.
I really dislike the lack of analog movement.
What do you mean?
You have the control stick.
Oh.
Kururin squat, because it's like, you know, circle pad with DS games on the 3DS. It's
Yeah.
mimicking analog movement, but it's really just
Dude,
D-pad.
This is just simply impossible. It's just so
I
sad.
have 3 hearts and I'm fucking up. Yeah, hold on. I exit the thing. Let me switch to ball mode.
Okay. Oh wait, we can do... Yeah, let's
A
do
marathon.
random sage. Level 1. Okay.
One heart ball.
Yeah, one heart ball mode.
It just looks so fucking stupid.
Oh fuck!
It's just so fucking stupid.
I wasn't pressing A and B.
It looks like some like fucking like prototype, if that makes sense.
I will say, I
It's
do
not that
wish
bad.
there was more. I wish there was more variety for the backgrounds,
Oh my fucking. No way.
because they're all the same stage background.
Dude, it's just simply impossible with one heart. It just doesn't line up.
Oh my god. I keep getting right to the fucking end. I've never fucking played this before, so the spring's like turning you around. It like throws me off so much.
Oh, I got it!
I don't think you're able to do link cable stuff through 3DS anyways.
Nah. I don't
You
know.
might be able to.
What about
I'm
Pokemon?
not sure.
Dude.
You can't with Pokemon Gold, Silver and stuff.
No. GBA games.
Can we just forfeit?
Well, I meant like if they did it for that, they probably would for this. I don't know either though. I'd never seen.
I made it!
I don't think you can do it because I don't think you could do that on the DS, and the 3DS is just using the DS's architecture from that.
What the fuck is this?
I made it, bitch! Oh, it's really funny. Oh, you guys were right there. You guys were right there. You guys were right there. You were all right there. But no. Oh, you
That's
were
just a
all...
fucking advantage.
Yeah, this game is balance.
You guys can't do this.
I got
Actually,
three
it's
different
so
stages
stupid.
here.
It's actually so stupid.
I made it, bitch.
That's fucking stupid.
Shit.
What the fuck is the upper part for in that?
I don't know. We didn't play. We didn't play with fucking things sticking out.
That's not doable.
Oh
That's
not rushing through it.
It's just simply impossible. It's just so sad.
no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh, fuck!
We need,
It's
we need
okay.
that. We need that footage, man.
We just need a variety of footage. Actually, let's just...
All with the same background.
I'm a YouTuber. We just need that
Wait,
footage.
this is a new one. This is a new one. It's gonna add variety to the footage.
Yeah, this is just a point to bring up because all the backgrounds are just the same. Oh, I'm gonna beat you guys. I'm gonna fucking beat you guys.
Okay.
Oh my, it's the same one.
You guys are just speeding through.
I just fucking beat
simply-
you. It's preposterous. Yeah, retros is just shorter. It's okay if I just retro over your pillow.
This one's hard. Holy shit!
Oh, this one's just hard, huh?
I was literally right. Fucking.
My points are just balanced.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Wait, that's just...
Oh my god! Oh my god!
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like the background. It's like...
Well, yeah, it's good. It's just like the same thing every time. Oh my god!
Oh my god.
Have a party.
Yo, let's just have a fucking party, man.
Oh my god.
Oh my
Like
god!
narrowly avoided.
Yeah,
I love
Retro's
when
just
Kuru
playing
does
me.
this.
I was so fucking close.
Yeah, see, this level wouldn't be as hard if it had the fucking Kururin Paradise propeller spin.
M4, what was that like weird voice clip from R37? Was it like Toadette or something?
Yeah, it was Toadette saying, mushroom!
Mushroom! Yeah, man, you are like a crazy fella, huh? Manny Heffley.
Huh? Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
Okay, guys. I kept trying to find the source of that today, but I couldn't find it.
What, the fucking huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was searching random combinations of that on YouTube, like, huh, yeah, but I just couldn't find it.
This is just
Are you
doable, huh?
Oh, you have to hit the spring.
Did you just now figure that out? Have you been, like, trying to speed through all the, like, curves
Yeah.
despite your direction?
Yeah, Retro is just gonna play Kururin after this. Like, we're gonna see him, like, 5 hours on GBA
Oh
Online.
my god!
Oh my god! Again, this one wouldn't be hard if you could get, like... Because in Paradise, they have a button where you can change how fast the propeller spins.
You've played the other ones?
Yeah, I played Paradise Squash in this. I think I'm the only other person in the server who's played all the Kururin games.
Time.
Wait, there's
God.
a time limit? Wait! Run that shit back, man.
Elgato!
Oh, you can just sneak under there, huh? No, I had that shit in the bag.
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
Yes,
put
this
in
is
the
this is.
video.
I love it when Retro and I just give up and we just go circle mode.
No, you can't do this. Okay?
It's always like the fucking
Oh my
easiest
god,
stage.
I
dude.
fucked that up. I fucked that up so bad.
Dude, I fucking beat the station for you.
You did. Yeah, we just need that footage variety.
Hang on, I'm gonna do something interesting. I want to try single pack play because it's different.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because some games you
Yeah.
can do it with one pack.
I
That
just
was
have
like
to,
the precursor to download play.
Yeah, it downloads the shit on your own GBA without the cartridge.
That's cool because it just booted up with the regular thing for us.
I want to.
Well, music isn't playing right now.
Oh, it's not playing for you?
It's not
It's
playing for me
supposed to?
now.
Wait, can someone else?
It did when we
post
played
this?
it
'Cause,
before.
like, I want to get footage of like what it's like on the other end.
On the other end, okay. Hold on, I'll do that.
Is it okay if I
Yeah,
just
bro-
crew rim you?
Brooklyn Tea guy.
No, I wouldn't appreciate that very much.
Wait, so what is single? What does that mean?
It means if you have
Wait,
a
did it
single
boot?
cartridge,
Did
you can
it boot
still
up
play
with the
game.
GBA BIOS?
Oh,
Like you, it.
I didn't
will-
know they had. I didn't know they had like download play on the GBA.
Yeah.
Did it boot up with the GBA BIOS?
Yeah. It just says Game Boy for me.
Okay, then yeah, that's single pack. So it loads it from. I don't think much is different. It just loads it from your,
Yeah, I don't.
your end.
I don't think there is music for this.
There's no music. Wait, the fucking HUD is like lower quality for me.
Yeah, I know. Interesting.
Hold on.
Okay, that's. Wait, what is
Why is there
that?
like a thing? Why is there like a
Oh,
thing?
yeah, there's a little red guy just flying across the screen. What the fuck?
0 points looks like it says options.
Dude, I was literally just about to say that. There's like
There's no music play?
no, there's
mu-
just like there's like mechanical like sound effects now.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was there before.
Oh, was there before?
I don't know.
So I think because it's doing it through the link cable, I'm pretty sure it just doesn't download the music.
Yeah, it does.
How do I tap the
That's
spring?
that's my
once?
theory though.
I think it downloads like lower quality sound effects.
Yeah. And there's a little fella that goes across the screen.
Just
Why?
excellent.
Thanks, M4.
Dude, who the fuck is gonna have 4 like Game Boy cartridges with Kururin and you just like find 3 other people with Kururin cartridges?
We're bringing it to the meetup.
Well, we don't need to. We just need one switch
Is
to
that
actually.
a
No, never
Pikmin?
mind.
Is that a Pikmin shaped one?
Wait.
There's no way.
Whoa. No, go 5-3. I think it was. I swear, dude, I fucking
This
swear
did not
that
look
was.
like. This is the Pikmin one.
No, that's like a. I don't know. That's like Clank, dude. Like a robot.
I think Aiden knew what Pikmin. Wait,
I swear, dude.
Did this come out before or after?
I don't
Pikmin?
know. Did this?
Wait.
This came out in
No,
2001.
that one.
Wait, that does just look like a
Alright,
fucking.
See?
Pikmin.
Pikmin came out after Kururin.
Come on, that does really look like a Pikmin.
Oh, it came out after Kururin? Okay, never mind.
Yeah, just a couple months though.
It had the insider info.
What the fuck is that little thing?
Where's it going?
Little red guy he
Why
just
does
goes
that
across the
happen? Why
screen.
does that happen?
Brad tried to fit in.
Oh wait, is this the one we
just-
were all stuck on? Oh no.
Wait, this might be better because like there's no music.
Yeah, there's no music to fucking distract you because I know that was a problem.
Oh my god.
I just like brute force fucking everything.
Kururin was on the Wii U Virtual Console, right?
I think it was only on Wii U in Europe and Japan.
Okay, because I know some games were released on Virtual Console in some areas. Like I know like Live Alive was released on Wii U Virtual Console, but only in Japan.
The only thing I know is that the manuals, you can still find them on Nintendo's website. So I think
That's cool.
They were on Wii U.
I really did
And
not
a
know.
lot of the stuff I hope you bring up in the video, like the fucking manuals thing, because that's just interesting.
Oh my god! Oh my gosh!
Wait,
Yes!
wait,
Yes!
wait! Did you? Oh, he did it. Retro did it.
How did Retro do it
Yes.
first? He's never played this game.
I just the
Retro
fucking
might be the
master.
true master.
No, you just fucking brute forced your way through it. You didn't actually
No, I
play.
actually didn't. I actually did it very methodically that time.
Did you know you can change the size of your helicopter at the beginning of any stage?
Yeah, at the beginning of every stage, you could just
I
shrink
didn't know
it
that.
as the red guy goes across the screen. You can shrink it to a ball.
Oh my!
Yep.
This like
Yeah, ball mode. Oh no! Who got stuck? Who got stuck?
I'm trying to
Not
fucking go through
me.
the wall. I'm trying to fucking go through the wall.
yeah.
I'm trying to go through the wall.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're just gonna have to get a 4th player just because we have to see the 4th color.
It's probably fucking yellow, M4.
But I mean, we have to make it as authentic as possible. So like, if
Yeah,
we only
'cause
have
you're
A
just
fun
two
gonna-
fact
people
about this
playing,
game.
then
You're
it's
just
not
gonna
authentic.
put that in the video, huh? You're gonna be like, you. In the multiplayer mode, you can be one of 4 colors: red, blue, green, or the elusive yellow.
I'm not gonna be that in depth, man.
Unfortunately,
elusive.
I couldn't get footage of this elusive color.
The elusive color, because it's impossible to find 4 people who have a Kururin cartridge and are willing to play with you in 2024.
But that brings me to download play. Yeah.
Download play. Show
Stop.
some heavy hitters, man.
That brings me to download.
It's
Yo,
not called download play. It's called single play.
yo, the fucking segue on the spot.
I can't concentrate.
Yeah.
And that brings me
So that
Wait, what is it called? Pack?
it's called
Single
single
pack
pack play. It brings me to download play.
That brings me to single pack play.
Remember
that
the
brings me to
Nintendo
download
DS
play.
that had
Single
download
pack
play?
play.
Yeah.
The
Remember when
precursor
your
to
friends had
download
that
play on
game
the
that you just
DS.
didn't have?
It's just some heavy hitters,
Remember
man.
when you would just link the cartridges all together and you were like, oh, I don't have this game. And you were like, oh, no worries. We can all play off of my single cartridge.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, the HUD elements will be lower resolution if you play through this mode.
Please upload this, like, just on its own. Like, please. Just us all
Yeah.
losing our shit over single pack play is so fucking funny.
Make another fucking like the Mario World race.
DS download play. What a memory.
Why are there 2 circles?
I don't know why. Suck it so much.
The original Game Boy and Game Boy Color didn't have download play, right?
No.
I don't think so. I think
No.
this is the first one.
Marathons just keep going on forever.
I think the closest thing
I think it
was
just goes on forever, yeah.
some games supported that IR sensor at the top of the Game Boy Color. I don't really remember which.
There was
I
an
thought this
IR
was
sensor for Game Boy Color.
yeah, it's on the top, like the black thing. I think it's just used for like quick transfers or something. I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know that the Game Boy even had an IR sensor. I thought the 3DS was the first thing that had an IR sensor.
Or what is it? An infrared? I think.
Yeah, infrared. Dude, the 3DS had one of those, but like it's only used by like the fucking amiibo
I had to
reader.
brute force my way through that.
Oh, I was asking as if IR and infrared are 2 separate things.
I
No,
think
I'm
they
pre-
are, yeah. I learned that through Nintendo.
Really?
They also call the
If you guys have a Game
Yeah.
Boy Color, just look at the top. There's like a black like square, like a TV remote thing.
the 3DS has one as well on the back, but I'm pretty sure the amiibo reader is the only thing that uses it.
Oh my god, how the fuck are you supposed to get through that? It's just simply impossible.
Well designed game, right?
Oh, I know how you do it. I know how you do it.
You
I wish
have
it
to
was.
go back. You can't touch that spring essentially.
No, you just don't use the spring. It's a
Dude,
trick.
It's just, I'm gonna bring that up in the video. Some springs in the game are just like, pretty much tricks.
So,
M4, I
dude,
like how
here
you're
we
like,
are
we gotta
at
get a
the.
fourth player. We gotta get a 4th player just to see what the 4th player color is. You can see it right there.
Well, can you,
How to
can you
say?
invite
See
someone?
it
Can you just
right
invite someone?
there.
Just invite someone random. That
Right there. It's just, oh. Hold on, I'm
we need to see this.
invite a friend. Hold on. I'm gonna invite everybody in my friends list. I don't want to send it to him. That'll be strange. I haven't talked to him forever. It's just like, hey, you want to play? You want to play Kuru,
Yeah.
man?
Are you talking about Escon?
Oh shit! It was an accident.
Oh shit, accident, man.
I think it's actually more
You
like gold, the color.
You could be hanging out with like, shut the fuck up, M4. you know it's yellow.
What if it's just like?
I would say it's more of a
What?
goldenrod orange. Yeah, we just need a 4th player. We need that. We need that 5-second fucking tidbit in the video.
That is interesting that they did like bring all the Starfy games. Japan
Why-
only.
Yeah.
But...
Why is only 3 on yours?
Wait. Well, that's because it's multiplayer. In multiplayer, it gets rid of all the single player
Oh.
games. Yeah, guys, let's all do Kurin multiplayer on the Japanese
Oh
version.
wait, let's do that actually. Can we do that?
Wait, really?
Wait, I don't have a Japanese account.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I'm not gonna do it. But what if there's like some insane regional difference? Can you get a screenshot, please? Just like try to time
It might be. It might be.
Okay, that's good. All right.
It might be higher quality to just screenshot your game
Yeah,
capture because
Because like
the
the in-game
screenshots are
screenshot-
720 and
Okay,
the
yeah, can you,
playback
like-
is 1080.
So can you like, can you like full screen your Elgato and just like do a full screen screenshot?
They really don't have this fucking thing online, really? You should just fucking
What?
hack your Switch and go into the files of the app.
Yeah, I'm just gonna fucking buy the Japanese copy and just scan it.
Is it called? Oh, my Switch is called Fart World. That's why. Oh, I guess I could just do that. Hold on. Give me a second.
Let's. I think it is actually higher quality. Wait, the one I have is more compressed.
Oh my god.
Wait a minute. Wait, what?
No,
It's
yours.
Wait, no, mine is more compressed. His is more.
So that is
pixelated.
higher quality. Wait, wait
no.
a second.
Wait, his is more pixelated, but it's less compressed.
Exactly.
Are you sure that's like the full like? Okay, I think it is. It hasn't been cropped. Okay, I'll save this.
Okay, that's going right now, and yeah, so I've got kind of like a time limit of like exactly like 5 minutes 55 seconds, so I gotta talk a little bit brief. I am gonna keep this brief, but yeah, I guess it's not over. You're seeing this now. I don't fucking know how this is gonna look. But anyways, I just wanted to include this as like one final literal tail end message for me personally. Just talking about some things, I guess. So yeah, today was a very interesting day. It's Christmas Day as I'm recording this. It's 11 p.m. now, and yeah, I'm kind of tired. I've been editing pretty much all day, also doing Christmas stuff, and yeah, I'm literally recording this right after I pretty much just finished editing the entire video, and now this is the last thing I have to do, so it's kind of crazy when you put it into that perspective. A couple things I want to say. I'm sorry about the Kururin multiplayer highlights, if it wasn't really that interesting or wasn't highly edited. I'm a little disappointed with how it came out in comparison to how I edited like the Mario Party 7 highlights or the Mario World highlights. But I know this is gonna sound stupid, but I kind of mostly put this as like a bonus thing, mostly as more of an archive for the multiplayer session we had. It was interesting. We recorded that back in like fucking July, so you can kind of see how long this video is actually really taken to make. Yeah, this video has been spanning a kind of a long part of this year. I think I started in like late-ish July, and I'm finishing basically at the end of the year. Yeah. I don't know what else to say other than like it feels incredibly surreal and cathartic, but mostly surreal that I'm actually finishing this video, and I honestly don't know how it's gonna go when I actually upload this. I don't know what, like, if I'm actually like, if everyone is actually gonna really care about this video, if, you know. But I will say thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. I know I already said that, but this is just an unscripted an unscripted way of saying that for me. Thank you very much for watching till the end. Unless you didn't watch till the end. I have no idea what to say. I didn't really have like notes or anything. Well, I have like 2 minutes, so I've been kind of rushing through this. Didn't really pace it that well. Yeah, I mean, it's like, you can kind of notice that this video is like a little different in like how I usually talk. I really wanted this video to be representative of me and like how I actually express what I'm interested in, if that makes any sense. Like, I feel like with my older videos I was more so like actually just reading off a script and like acting out off a script in a more of that way, but this one felt more personal to me, and obviously it was a lot longer, so it was just like I was a lot more in depth. Yeah, I'm basically just saying like that is pretty much like what I want to do for future videos, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I don't know. I have like 1 minute left to fill of this. It's 4:37. I actually recorded this. So the thing about the Kururin multiplayer highlights is that I did edit it like partway into editing the actual video. I did not save it for the tail end of the video editing process, because that would have been kind of, I don't know. I'm kind of glad I didn't do that, because basically like the final actual editing thing, I placed the final shot where I had the Kururin drawing, and I placed that. That was the final thing I put in there. It felt pretty bittersweet to do that. And yeah, I actually recorded this part a lot earlier than how I'm doing it now, but yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. What the fuck? I have like 30 seconds, but anyways, I'm gonna close this out. Again, thank you for watching, and now we're gonna cue the outro that I'm probably never gonna use again. I'm trying to go. I'm gonna like rework all that stuff, but anyways, yeah. Cue the outro. We have like 10 seconds left. We have like, yeah, this is just a great design. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Yeah, that's fucking weird. Okay.